quiet.
Good evening, everyone. I call the Tuesday, March 19th, 2024 Peninsula School District Board of Directors meeting to order. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Item 3 is the approval of the agenda for this evening. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Jennifer and seconded by Chuck to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. The agenda is approved. We're going to start this evening with comments from our student school board representatives. So are you going in order? You want to start, Sarah?
I can start.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Sarah from Henderson Bay. We started our garden project recently. We're currently in the planning phase. Last week, March 12th, we had a meeting with Discovery Elementary to talk about inviting them to garden with us. We are working on planning dates for what we'll do and what we will get to work with the kids. We're really excited for that. And our engineering class is starting to plan and map out the outside of our of the area on Tinkercad and what we're going to be putting out there. Last week we had Interact hosted our pancake breakfast for our service trip to Guatemala, which turned out to be a really awesome success with a lot of attendees, including people who just saw our signs on the street. We raised over $3,000 and are getting close to $4,000 with the money others have raised and outside donations. We now have 5 students going to Guatemala. We're getting excited and preparing for that. We'll be leaving on April 13th and coming back that next week. And our student showcase, we'll be having that at 6 o'clock on May 16th. A ribbon cutting will be held for the garden project on May 16th. It's going to be really great. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Logan Toms, the Gig Harbor High School student representative, and it's a pretty packed crowd tonight, but we got a lot of exciting stuff going on. Right now, the class of 2024 is doing a fundraiser, basically by selling yard signs, and this will end on March 31st, so make sure you buy those now. On the 22nd at 6 p.m. in the main gym, we're hosting a mental resilience and athletics night where essentially a bunch of people in the industry are coming in. I think like a NFL player, a D1 soccer coach, and some other people are coming in to talk about like what successful athletes do to like support their mental health and like how to cope with the high stress of athletic competition. So that's really exciting. Looking at some of our spring sports, our boys soccer team has an away game tonight against River Ridge at 7 p.m. following their previous victory against Yelm on the 14th. Our Tides baseball had a home game today against Yelm at 4, and they also play Yelm again tomorrow in a away game. Our girls tennis team is currently facing Yelm High School right as we speak, and this Thursday on the 21st, our girls water polo team will be facing up against Bainbridge in a home game, and our golf team will also be doing a home match against River Ridge on the 21st. Now, looking at some of our clubs, our drama club will be showing their new play, The Sound of Music, on March 27th, 30th, April 5th, and 6th. So make sure you get your tickets now. And today, our Gig Harbor High School Jazz Band 1 went to PLU Jazz Festival, where they performed and got to see Eric Marenthal, a famous saxophonist, perform alongside the PLU Jazz Band. And later this week on Saturday, both of our jazz bands are going to be heading to the Newport Jazz Competition, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And this past weekend, our Gig Harbor High School speech and debate team headed to Gonzaga for the state debate tournament, for the annual debate tournament. And some notable showings were Jack Petrie being a finalist in Congress, and myself alongside my partner Ellis Adamson finishing 5th in public forum. So that was a lot of fun. And our STEAM club also had their state competition this weekend, and there were a bunch of placements like Emily Bray, 3rd place in Future Tech Teacher, Natalie Benke and Madison Clement placing 3rd in Children's Stories, Mickey Colombo and Emily Bray placing 2nd in Data Sciences, and along with numerous other placements. So a lot of them are qualified for the national competition in Orlando, Florida. So that's really exciting. So yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark Slocum. I'm a second year student from CTP. This past month, we raised a lot of money for Meals with Morton. We hosted a chili feed for legend Barb Morton. The money goes to help middle, elementary, and high school students learn by cooking. Unified Soccer begins next week. This program is for people with and without disabilities. Games will be in April and May on Saturdays. CTP will be attending a Tools for Success conference at TCC on March 26. The conference is focused on preparation for career and college readiness. High school and transition students are invited to attend to ensure their future success. Our speaker is Fantasy A, and he is a rapper, actor, and author. He has autism. We develop our leadership skills by teaching younger students. We taught some elementary school students at Voyager how to make Hawaiian tapa art with hands-on art. Last month, we joined Peninsula High School and taught a lesson about big emotions by reading a book and helping the second graders make their own sensory bottles. We must be doing a good job because every time we go, they ask us to come back like, "Can you please come back? We don't want you to leave." Let's talk about employment, a huge focus at CTP. I would like to highlight Amelia Scheffler, who is a senior and is volunteering at a local preschool with the hope of moving into paid employment. Another highlight is Jack Hodges got employed at Walgreens, and whoever wants to stop by and see Jack at work can see him. He works on Friday afternoons. Another student who has been successful on the job is Thomas Burks. He is in his first year at CTP and works weekly at the Peninsula Paint Store, stocking shelves and cleaning, and at Peninsula Lutheran Church, where my dad is the pastor, landscaping. At first, work was hard for Thomas, but now he is one of the hardest workers at these job sites. My favorite job site is Backpack for Kids. I package food and supplies for families, then deliver to different schools around the district. I like going to my old schools and checking in with people I know. I also volunteer at Snapology, where I disassemble Lego parts and inventory kits. Happy first day of spring today.
Hello, I'm Adam Massery. I'm the junior representative for Peninsula. So some things that are going on at Peninsula, our spring sports are now starting to compete. So they're going out to compete after, getting their ladder and stuff. Knowledge Bowl is going to state on Saturday, so that's really cool. I'm pretty sure they got third in regionals. Alec would correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah. Mr. Peninsula is this Friday at 6 p.m. I'm pretty sure Alec's doing that too. And we have a lot of people doing it. It's supposed to be really fun. You should definitely come. It's $5 at the door to come watch. It's at Peninsula, so it's a ton of fun. We have our spring assembly this Friday, and we're going to be doing a pie in the face. So during lunch, there'll be they have little cans where you can put in money in order to pie like a teacher or a student who's like already said they want, like, are okay with it. So like you put in money, and during the assembly your name can get pulled, and then if you get pulled, then you get to pie that person in the face. Another thing, seniors, a lot of the college decisions came out, especially UW. That was a big one. So a lot of people have been posting on their story about that. So congratulations to any seniors who got into their college that they wanted to. Our JROTC, there we go. They competed in a regional competition in Oregon City. They had a physical fitness and academic contests. They placed first in physical fitness, and then they placed second and sixth in two separate academic contests. So that was really cool. Last week was really great. We had our classified staff appreciation week, and so yeah, leadership did a ton of stuff for that. Our sophomores are doing their ELA Smarter Balance testing during their English class this week, so they love that. There's a wrestling comedy night on April 5th. It's been talked about a ton at the school, so I think a lot of people are going to show up there. Also, Ramadan started last Monday, and it goes till April 9th. So any Muslims, including me, will be fasting. And, till April 9th. Avid teachers. So since the Avid program was like cut from middle schools, the Avid teachers from Peninsula are like, they want to go over to middle schools to like talk about Avid, so that when they go to high school, they'll like sign up for Avid or like know what it is and stuff, because it's like they're not being exposed to it in middle school. So yeah, they just they wanted to get that out there because they really enjoy the program. Also, there's a new club at Peninsula. Actually, we had our first meeting last week. It's the People of Color Club. So yeah, it's just it's like a place you could go. A ton of people come, and it's like for people of color, and you just kind of chill out. But anybody can come, and we play fun games, and there's a ton of good snacks and good people. It's a ton of fun. Also, as you guys probably know, the power went out today at school, and it was only for half an hour this time, so that was nice. But yeah, that was a fun little bit to the day. And yeah, that's what's going on at Peninsula High School.
Okay. Item 5, on our agenda this evening is going to be comments from the community. We have many people signed up to speak, so please be mindful of your time. We will be cutting everyone off right at 3 minutes. Please, when I call your name, come to the podium and speak. Like I said, you will have 3 minutes to do so. Our first speaker this evening is Thelma Brown.
Good evening. Is this on? Can you hear me? Oh, all right. Good evening. I'm Thelma Brown, a retired teacher, counselor, and principal. Being a former educator and administrator, I see how the death of a student can adversely affect a school as well as the entire community. I would like to extend my heartfelt sympathy to the parents and family of the student who recently died, as well as to all families who have lost a child. I would also ask that the board hire more counselors and social workers for all schools because they're needed to provide a healthy and strong support system for the emotional and social development of all students. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we have Chris Doherty.
Good evening. My name is Chris Doherty, and I'm the parent of 2 students in the PSD school district. It has been very encouraging to hear the board place a value on increasing our kids' sense of belonging at school and witness board members reaffirm their dedication to student safety and the gravity of harassment, intimidation, and bullying within our district. In the last board meeting, it has been mentioned that social emotional learning, or SEL, is implemented in our schools. However, SEL does not fully address diversity and cultural differences. How can we address these very serious issues when schools are not actively engaging in the necessary work to combat them? The school board must ensure that the parents' initiative that discusses a parent's right to review instructional material does not undermine the importance of DEI learning in our schools. For parents who may oppose the significance of DEI in schools, they can have the option to opt their students out. Today I'm wearing something a bit different, which is a traditional Filipino garment called a barong Tagalog. As an American citizen, my Filipino culture is extremely important to honor my heritage and to share with others. Understanding different cultures that embody the diversity of American history is essential to combat racism in our schools. Once again, I present a potential idea for an opportunity for students to learn about other cultures within the PSD district, which is International Week, and would be more than happy to help coordinate this event if there is an interest. PSD wants to be one of the leading school districts in Washington, so lead the way and show what the standards should be in a diverse, equitable, and inclusive education. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Aria Messer.
It's me again. My name is Aria Messer. I have 2 children in the Peninsula School District. Today, my 14-year-old son missed another day of school. His absence count is above 90 classes, counted by class. He struggles with sleep issues, stomach issues, anxiety, and depression. This wasn't an issue for him last year. What's different? He came out as bi. And while he kept it to his closest friends and family, a friend outed him at school. His former football teammates began to bully him. As a successful starting lineman in the Tides Junior Football League, he opted not to play next year in high school because of this. He said to me at the beginning of the year, "Mom, I'm too athletic for the rainbow kids and too queer for the sports ones. I don't know where I fit." He acts confident and smart at school for the most part. I'm sure Tyrone can attest. But at home, we see a completely different side. He's on medication, he sees a therapist weekly, and I've explored every opportunity to help him find belonging and hope. Because being a teen is hard enough, and being a brown queer one is even harder. Tonight, I know you're meeting about HIB, and I have come to these meetings, nearly every board meeting, to talk about this. Please, as you discuss it, imagine it's your child that this will impact. Imagine it's your kid that's struggling. Imagine it's your kid you are worried about every morning as you go to see if they're awake, wondering if they've chosen not to wake up because it's all too much. Please imagine this is you and make the changes necessary to create a culture of empathy, inclusion, and understanding differences, because I don't want my son to be another statistic. And I hope if it was your child, you wouldn't either.
Next, we have Bethany Davis.
Hello, my name is Bethany Davis. Thank you for the space to share tonight and for taking seriously the concerns of the community you serve. I am mom to 6 kids in the district, 1 at Gig Harbor High School, 3 at Copachuck, and 1 in Artendale. I wish to add my voice and name to the growing group of parents and community members expressing concern about the current atmosphere of exclusion and bullying experienced by our kids on a daily basis. Sorry, I'm not feeling very well. I have been appalled by how my own children and other children in the district have been treated by their peers. We moved here from abroad 3 years ago, and the first thing my oldest child said to me when he started school was, "Mom, everybody here looks and acts exactly the same," which does not indicate a problem. But when the few students who are not the same are ostracized, that's when it becomes a problem. My own children have been teased and bullied for the clothes they wear, their haircuts, the music they listen to, their hobbies, and their sexual orientations, among other things. And my kids have the privilege of being white. I can only imagine what the students of any other race experience. My kids in middle and high school report that they hear the N-word every single day in the halls or on the bus. This fact alone is reprehensible. They also hear homophobic slurs every day, often directed right at them. This kind of behavior aimed at my kids has resulted in self-harm, depression and anxiety, and suicide ideation in children who beforehand were happy and secure. As appalling as experiencing bullying and exclusion themselves and witnessing it happening to other students, as appalling as that is, the lack of trust students feel in the adults around them to do anything or care might even be worse. I know there are adults who care in all our schools. I know there are teachers and principals and administrators who care deeply. I know that. But that care is not felt by enough students, especially the othered students who need to feel it the most. 2 weeks ago, my daughter was riding the bus home and a boy in the seat behind her cut her hair with scissors. She was mortified, but the boys laughed and wouldn't say which one of them had done it. I asked her if I could report it to the school and get it taken care of. She absolutely refused and asked me not to tell anyone. It wouldn't do any good, it wouldn't matter, she said. And that's what they say every time they come home from school and tell me how they were made fun of that day, or how many times they heard the N-word that day, and I say I want to report it. It won't do any good, it won't matter. Our kids do not trust their teachers or their administrators to have their backs. They expect teachers and administrators will sweep things under the rug to maintain the reputation of the school. This directly affects the well-being of these students who are already at higher risk for a myriad of long-term mental health struggles. Again, I know there are adults who care. Every adult in this room cares. That's why we're here. But that point is completely moot if the kids don't believe it. I urge the district to take these concerns seriously and spend significant time and effort in figuring out how to do right by all our kids in the district, especially the other students who need it the most. Thank you for listening, and always thank you for caring.
Next, we have Douglas Erner.
My name is Douglas Erner. I'm a parent of a graduate of Gig Harbor High School, and I used to teach at South. I hope you know that what you're hearing about is the tip of the iceberg. I never said a word to anybody about the bullying I experienced in school. And I think it's time that we stop coming here and talking about this, and I'd like to see the board commit to solving this problem, to partnering with members of the community, to finding solutions, to finding strategies that work, to figuring out how to evaluate them, and then to implement them. It's way past time that this is going on. I do not want to hear about some kid dying because of the bullying they experience. I've been there. I don't want to hear about it again. Thank you.
Next is Peter Frazier.
We want to begin by recognizing and thanking the educators, paraeducators, and staff who are doing amazing work every day for our students in the Peninsula School District. Dear Peninsula School District board members and district leadership, we, the undersigned parents, guardians, and community members, insist that the pervasive acts and words of discrimination, anti-queer hate, and racism against BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQIA+, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, plus, disabled, and neurodivergent students are immediately addressed. For far too long, these incidents have persisted, causing harm and perpetuating a climate of fear and inequity within our schools. An Asian American student was the victim of a racist assault on a bus, and the use of the N-word and other hate speech continues at our schools. We are calling on the Peninsula School District to take the following actions. Number 1, acknowledge the problem. Acknowledge the existence and severity of the acts and words of discrimination, anti-queer hate, bullying, and racism against BIPOC, LGBTQIA+, disabled, and neurodivergent students that plagues our school district. The issue must be elevated to a priority level within the district's agenda for immediate attention and resolution. Number 2, adopt a restorative justice model. Institute restorative justice practices into the district's approach, overall comprehensive policy, and seek to eliminate the root causes of harm caused by harassment, intimidation, and bullying. The current policies, rooted in investigation and punishment, perpetuate cycles of harm rather than foster inquiry, healing, and learning. The plan should include a long-term strategy to shift the culture in our district to prioritize inclusivity, the understanding of others, and the safety and well-being of all children. Number 3, expand district-wide training. Expand district-wide initiatives focused on empowering all staff, all students, all volunteers with the knowledge, skills, and resources necessary to effectively identify, intervene, and prevent acts and words of discrimination and anti-queer hate and racism. This training should emphasize the importance of creating a safe and inclusive environment for all members of the school community. And number 4, hire diverse staff. Hire, support, and retain BIPOC, LGBTQIA+, disabled, and neurodivergent teachers, administrators, and staff. This is essential to a truly inclusive school district.
Next, we have Joy Stanford.
Hello, my name is Joy Stanford. I'm going to continue the letter that just was read. In response to these urgent concerns that were just spoken about, we commit to the following actions as a community. 1, organize, take action. We will organize, mobilize, and strategize and advocate for the rights and well-being of all students. We will not rest until meaningful change is achieved. 2, collaborate with the district. We will work collaboratively with the PSD board and district leadership to advance these critical goals to ensure our district becomes a safe and inclusive environment for all students. We ask that the district work with us as well. 3, spread awareness. We will actively engage with our broader community to raise awareness of the issues facing BIPOC, LGBTQIA, disabled, and neurodivergent students within our schools to garner support for our efforts to promote equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging. We will amplify the stories of discrimination, hate, and division to increase awareness of what is happening to the students in the Peninsula School District. We urge the Peninsula School District Board and district leadership to hear our call to action and prioritize the creation of a safe and inclusive learning environment for all students. We must resist the temptation to rely on the processes and systems rooted in oppression and white supremacy to rectify the problems that they have perpetuated. Embracing restorative, real restorative justice represents a significant step towards creating a more equitable and compassionate school environment. We stand united in our commitment to justice, equity, and compassion, and we look forward to working together to bring about positive change in this district. I leave you with these two questions. How would you react if these incidents were happening to your child? How are you willing, or are you willing, to meet with us to make meaningful change in our district and our community? Thank you.
Next, we have Lisa Marcus.
Hello, my name is Dr. Lisa Marcus. I'm an educator, and importantly, I am a mother. I have been a mother of children in this school district for 20 years. My daughter will be graduating from Peninsula High School in several months, and I have a junior in college. I signed this letter, and I support it wholeheartedly. And I want the board to think about the links between what the letter is asking for in your study session today on HIB. I'm speaking in particular as the mother of a lesbian daughter now. LGBT plus students are disproportionately targeted, and once bullied have a disproportionately and unacceptably high rate of suicide. My older daughter went through the school system here through junior high, and she did not feel, she nor her parents felt safe attending high school here. Fortunately, she was able to go to SAMI in Tacoma, where I happen to know many LGBT plus students go because they don't feel safe in the Peninsula School District. My daughter was well supported there and is thriving now in college. But she doesn't come home often, and she does not have fond memories of her experiences in the Peninsula School District. And I think that's important for you all to hear. My more heteronormative child has done fine because the school district matches her. But it did not match my other child, and it does not match the children of people who've spoken today and people who, frankly, are not speaking today, because maybe they're taking care of their children. Maybe they're trying to figure out how they can afford to travel across the bridge to take the students to school in another community that's more accepting. Your HIB policy is unacceptably bureaucratic. It's very much focused in a policy way on looking at what happens after harassment, intimidation, and bullying have happened, and on a disproportionately, sorry, I'm using that word so much, you would think an English professor could do a little better. It focuses much too much on the aftermath. And it focuses much too little on prevention and on changing the culture that produces and enables bullies and harassers. We must do better to change the culture. You are educators. We can be good at this. It's our responsibility as grown-ups, as educators, as people in this school district to change the culture so that it is a much more welcoming and inclusive place. Thank you.
Next, we have Christy Wahala. Christy Wahala.
I didn't hear you.
Sorry.
It's okay. Hello, I'm Christy Wahala. I'm a parent of 3 PSD students and have worked in multiple Peninsula programs over the last 7 years. Tonight, I just want to address the inconsistencies that I heard last meeting in Dan Gregory's report about the HIB protocols and the social emotional learning that happens in the secondary schools. It's a lot different than what I actually experienced when I worked at PHS first semester. The week-long boot camp and focus on expected behaviors at the beginning of the year he speaks of, in reality, can be boiled down to a mere minutes of focus on HIB. During the first week of school, a 4-day week, there were 30-minute homeroom classes every day, which normally they're just 1 day a week. So each grade level had one assembly that week that was 30 minutes long, talking about behavior expectations, relevant grade level information. I don't know how much of this 30 minutes was actually spent on HIB. The other 3 days were divided into, one, school supplies. So those school supply kits that the district purchased were handed out. Kids picked through them. Many kids didn't take them because they didn't want them, didn't need them, but that's a whole different topic. The second day was handbook presentation in homeroom, so during which time the homeroom teachers review the student handbook with the class. This is an extremely dense 65-page document, of which 4 pages, pages 53 through 57, focus on harassment, intimidation, and bullying. So you can imagine how much of that a teacher can get through in 25 minutes with their class. The third day is important school information, which I'm sure some of it is classroom expectations, behavior, but it's also, you know, sports coming up and important dates and things like that. All these are 25-minute long classes. So the actual time focused on harassment, intimidation, and bullying is at best 55 minutes over the course of the week. But realistically, probably much less than that. Hardly the boot camp that the district makes it out to be, but enough to check the boxes to say that they did it. Most of the social emotional learning throughout the school year comes in the form of slideshows and homeroom class once a week, and some students skip that class because it's not credit bearing. The Character Strong program the district touts is lessons on the Chromebook that the students are asked to complete monthly. If you ask the students themselves, many of them say they don't like the program and they just click through them. Put their headphones on, click through it in class. I believe that those lessons could lead to meaningful conversations, but they aren't pushed to have those conversations. Students see these lessons as the district having to check a box, and so they don't buy into it, and I can't blame them. We must find a more meaningful way to connect students with each other. Most hatred is rooted in fear and ignorance. And the only way to remove it is to learn about your peers, see the humanity in them, and find common ground. Jennifer Butler, I appreciate your comments last week about you can stay till you're blue in the face. Don't harass people, be nice to everybody. But if there's no relationship building happening, nothing is going to change. We must do better.
Okay, that concludes our public comment for the evening. Item 6 on the agenda is our consent agenda. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? A second. It's been moved by David and seconded by Lori to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Consent agenda has been approved. Our first report this evening is going to be our winter sports recap, and we have Ross Filkins from Peninsula High School here with a crew of students. So I'd love to invite you all up to the podium to talk about winter sports at PHS.
Okay, thanks for having us. Ross Filkins, Athletic Director at Peninsula High School. We're excited to be here and have the opportunity to celebrate some of our successes and some of our learning opportunities that we experienced this winter. Tanya, are we working here? There we go. All right, so thank you. Let's see. What's it doing? So we had quite a bit of growth this year in our winter participation. 2 of our programs grew substantially. Girls wrestling, who we're going to talk about some of their awesome achievements a little bit later, but also the growth in our unified program. We're really happy with that. We had 4 different unified separate programs that we were able to participate in this winter. So you're going to hear from some outstanding student athletes here, and we're going to start off with Unified with PC.
My name is Prince Charles. I'm in 11th grade, and this is my first year doing Unified. And one of my favorite memories was honestly just learning about inclusion and really just including everyone. We learned about 7 seconds at this camp we went to, and that was the favorite thing that I learned. It only takes 7 seconds to make someone smile or just ask about their day. So yeah.
My name's Juanita, and my favorite thing about Unified is just making friends. And at first practice of basketball, I was really nervous because I didn't know anyone. After I made 2 best friends, I just knew that I could take challenges, and it really wasn't that hard.
Good job, Juanita.
Hi, my name's Riley Ducharme. I'm in 9th grade at Peninsula. I'm here to talk about Unified Cheer. So this is the first year that Peninsula has had an official cheer program, and it was off to a great start with 27 girls. And we were able to cheer at all 4 of the Unified basketball games, including the tournament, and we cheered at the showcase that the basketball teams did during a varsity boys basketball game. That was probably my favorite memory, and just learning about inclusion and getting to include everyone.
Hi, my name is Milo Madrid, and I like playing video games. It's fun, and I like esports because I get to play games with friends, which I don't get to do very often.
Good job, Milo. You go to the next one, Tanya. Tanya, can you go to the next one, please? I believe so. Yeah, this is not working right here. So, boys swim and dive had a very successful season, record-setting season. So Jonah Bergson broke a 14-year school record in the 100 backstroke. He also placed 4th in the state finals. Our team took 3rd overall at districts, and then all 3 of our relay teams made to state. And then all 4 of our team captains here also were in the state event as well. So they had a great time. And then we'll move on to bowling, right? There we go. Girls basketball.
Hi, my name is Kalia Heidelberg, and I'm representing girls basketball. I'm a senior at Peninsula High School. This was the 2nd year in a row of us going to the state championships. We did not, unfortunately, make it any further than the first round, but that's okay. Myself, I did break the 3 school records. I broke the most amount of 3 points in a season, career, and in one game. And then I also did score my 1,000th career point this season, done in 3 years because I did not get to play as a freshman due to injury. Me and my teammate Grace Richardson were both nominated for first team All-League, and I believe Irene Segura was honorable mention. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Carson Zimmerman, and I'm representing boys basketball. I'm a junior at PHS. This year we had 35 participants. Our boys varsity team went down to San Diego during winter break to participate in the Surf and Slam tournament where we went 2-1. We learned a lot educationally, and we did a lot of team bonding down there. That was probably my favorite memory. Statistically, we broke our record for the most team assists in a season at 167. We had a very strong freshman class. 3 freshmen participated and played strong roles in the varsity team. We had 6 freshmen that played on JV, which played strong roles. Most started most of the time while they were here. And our C team did very well, getting the best win-loss ratio since 2018. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ashley Richards. I'm on the girls bowling team. I'm a junior this year. This has been the largest team since 5 years ago. 4 of our girls made it to districts, and 1, me, only made it to state. I was 14th in state, and I also qualified for the TAC Athlete of the Year award. And my favorite memory was that all my friends got to go to state with me, and they watched, and yeah.
Hi, my name is Nehemiah Grandorf, and I'm representing the boys wrestling. This year we had the most, the biggest team we've had in the past couple of years. We had 4 boys participants in the state tournament, and we had 2 state placers, Justin Phipps, who got 7th, and Nehemiah Grandorf, me, who got 5th. We had a great show out for our team, and we had a ton of fun going to tournaments and just supporting each other. And I feel like this brought us closer as a school and as a team together to become like a family. So Georgina can finish it off.
I'm Georgina Johnson. I'm representing the girls wrestling team. This year we placed first overall in state. With 2 individual state placers and then 3 other state placers, or 2 state champions, I mean. And then we placed first in sub-regionals and districts in general. And then this year we've had a tremendous growth with 2 years ago we only had 2 female wrestlers. This year we had a team of 15, 7 of those making it to state.
The state championship that the girls earned down at the Tacoma Dome was incredible. Something that you should know also about girls wrestling is the way that program functions at the state level. It's actually, we compete in the 3A and 4A division. So it's all of the biggest schools across the state. The growth there has been so substantial that next year they're going to have to break it out to all the different classifications. So the achievement to do that at the 3A and 4A level is incredible. So we're really proud of them, and it's a young team as well. So Friday, there's an assembly, and we're going to be honoring a lot of kids, but we're also going to be hanging that state championship banner up on our wall. So really excited for them. So great job. We all know that our pools, our gyms, our courts, etc., are fertile grounds for learning. It's also the safest place for kids to learn how to fail successfully. And so there's a tremendous amount of support for our student athletes, and we're really proud of them, win or lose. But one thing that we're really very proud of this winter is the academic achievements of all of these programs that earned distinguished and outstanding awards through WIA for their team GPAs. So really tremendous job for our athletes, our coaches, and the support of our community. So thanks very much for everybody. Any questions? Any questions?
We have some comments or questions. Any questions from the board? Yeah, questions first, and I think we probably all have some comments.
Yeah, just a quick question. Does PSD have any plans to look at adding girls flag football, or as a winter sport, or is that only in districts that don't have bowling?
We actually, our new league, it's going to be a big turnout. We're entering a league that has a lot of members that are already participating in girls flag football, and so we would like to bring that on. We need to make sure that we're going through the process to investigate that, but that's certainly my hope.
I get it. Having kids that wrestled 4 years at Gay Harbor High School, I know how hard it is to get through sub-regionals, regionals, and make it to the mat. So I know that Sonnen was one state. What was the other young person that won? Sonnen, and who was the other?
Bailey Parker.
Okay, so to win the state Mat Classic is incredibly amazing that we had 2 kids that did that. And then, question: lacrosse is super popular around. Is there any plan whatsoever, like bring lacrosse to the school districts?
Great question. We actually are supporting girls lacrosse right now as a WIA club sport. So it's not a full WIA athletic program yet. And so we also have a community program with boys lacrosse, which is a fantastic sport, and we love those kids and we support what they're doing there. It's just a little bit more difficult to bring that on as a state program. WI Executive Board does have a process where they can bring on pilot programs, and so we'll keep on looking at those opportunities and see if we can extend that for our kids.
Okay, the last thing is just, I know it's always a challenge for coaches to have their student athletes make it academically so they can play and compete. So I really appreciate the fact that you're focused on student first, academic second. I mean, athletics second. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Ross, can you talk a little bit about the esports? I think we glossed over that, and that's something that's kind of new.
Yeah, esports has been a little bit of a wild ride, and so we're really fortunate to have an esports program through Unified this year. It was really cool to watch. Okay, we don't currently have that ability to have that esports program through WIA right now. It was a pilot program. We looked at bringing that on board. But what happened is the platforms and the negotiations with WI broke down. And so we didn't have the amount of participation because the program offerings really weren't the ones that most of the kids across the state really want to participate in. WI is studying that right now, and they're working with different platform providers to make sure that the games are both appropriate as well as the ones that gather the interest of our student athletes. So we hope to be able to bring that back on at some point in the near future.
Well, I don't have a question, but I just want to say to you, Ross, your coaches, but especially the students, just how proud we are of you. First of all, for coming here tonight and speaking in front of such a large crowd of people. It takes a lot of courage. And I think that might be something that you learn as teammates and working hard and showing that grit and persevering. But you are exceptional young people, and we see the hard work that you put in. Certainly here to your GPA, it's not just about being a great athlete or being a smart kid. It's about being hardworking young people. You take care of each other. You show up for your school. You show up for your teammates, and you're showing up for yourself. And that's something that is we can't overstate enough how much we value that and how impressed we are and how much we appreciate the leadership that you present at your school. So keep doing what you're doing. And keep winning. It's just so fun to come out and watch you guys play. And Unified Sports has been a game changer, I think, for all of us. We love coming out to watch it. You guys are just really exemplifying the best of what we have in our school district. And I think you being here tonight gives you an opportunity to showcase that, and we're so proud to have you here with us. So before you leave, we'd love for you all to come up and take a picture with us if we can. So crowd around. It's kind of a crowded room, but come on up.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're changing up a little bit this evening because we've got the study session. So we're going to get through all of the business part of the meeting first, like the superintendent report and board comments, and then we will roll on to the study session. So up next we have superintendent.
All right, I'm going to go very quickly. These are just things and items and programs that I've had the opportunity to go and be part of. I'm super excited about the garden, by the way, Sarah, I have to say. Very excited about that partnership. So please ask me out because I'd like to be part of that. We had an opportunity to be out at the farm out on Key Peninsula, the one that the backpack for kids, food backpacks. And so we had an opportunity to tour that a little. I look forward to understanding more as our CTP students will be starting Fridays and working out there at the farm. And that is a little bit beyond Evergreen, so it's at the very end, and it's a pretty large farm. And I know there's been some publicity around it, but it's pretty fantastic opportunity. We also had an opportunity to meet with our child nutrition Sodexo, and talking about really childhood obesity, childhood diseases, really caused around nutrition. I think there's a shared desire to maybe create some different things and have different conversations. I wanted to thank Ashley, our CFO, for setting up a meeting. The head VP for the Western state came up, and we are in discussion about how to ensure that our food program, because we feed children. I mean, we feed close to 9,000 children every day, whether they bring their lunch or they receive hot lunch, as we say, but it's not always hot. I learned that they have pho and that they have hummus, all kinds of things that I don't know if I actually knew that. And so I look forward to learning more. Did you know they have pho? Yeah, look at you guys. I need to come. I was like, what? So really having students have an opportunity to eat multiculturally and to experience opportunities. So we look forward to that. Also, I just wanted to thank all of the benefactors, that's not the right word, all of the people that really encouraged our parents and our students to watch that documentary Like. Boy, I really have to recommend, because I typically don't like to watch things like that, and I was sucked in right off the bat. And so I have passed that on to multiple other superintendents around the state and really nationally. I didn't know that really existed. So whoever brought that, if that was our counseling group or whoever, I just want to shout out to you, because any parent and myself that doesn't understand how social media works and how we are addicted, it really dovetailed really nicely. And Chris, thank you for doing, and Becky did a parent viewing at our local cinema. So pretty amazing. But families, if you have not watched that with your children, I really encourage that. We also had an opportunity, thank you, Dan DeZone and John Yellowlees, for the teacher residency, as well as Carol, our PEA president. We had many special education candidates on that evening, and that was very well attended, and very excited about partnering with WA to further our special education teacher pipeline, which is very, very important. John Yellowlees and I had an initial conversation with a group of homeschool parents, and we look forward to having a follow-up meeting in April. So I just encourage, if we have any families, there is a group that is wanting to meet with the school district. And so we look forward, John and I don't know exactly what the date is, if it's been confirmed. Do we know? April? Okay, well, April something. If there is a family that is interested, if they contact Teaching and Learning in Peninsula, we can get you in contact with that parent group. I just want to thank Pioneer Music, Reads and Sings. I had never been part of that before. So they read and then they sang, and they read and sang. a book, and it was fascinating. And the families, it just went on and on and on. So that was really, I'd never seen that before. It was really inventive. I just want to thank all of our band and choir, all of our art teachers. They are in full season right now. It is spring has sprung. Happy spring, but there are so many opportunities for you to come to schools and see students performing. So just shout out for that. We had our last, was it our last? I'm not sure. Letters training for teachers. The last full one last Friday. I'm very, very pleased with 80 of our elementary teachers have gone through full letters training, which is really like a college course. It's very intense, and the conversations that are happening around those tables. There is more for us to share later, but I just wanted to really commend the hard work that our staff are doing.
Can you explain what LETTERS is?
LETTERS is an acronym that stands for Phone a Friend. LETRS, and we will post it. It is literacy. And it really is the science of reading. Talk about brain structure, how we formulate, and how we learn how to read. So thank you for putting me on the spot for that. What was that?
Language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling.
All right. Thank you. I did not know that off the top of my head. And just that I have been to multiple STEAM and literacy nights, and I just want to thank all of our staff for the hard work, because they are doing that in the evening with families, and I know families have been so excited, and there are more to come. So with that, can I just end with how I'm just so thrilled about Unified? And I know they kind of brushed over, we did 4 of these, but that really has been a game changer and will become more of a game changer. I know that there are conversations about having that expand, and I'm a fan of that. So that is really, if families have not had an opportunity to do that, I know all the administrators that are part of that, really, that changes lives. So thank you for that.
Board discussion and comments. Anything board members want to share? I feel like Chuck and Lori, you're always kind of on the spot because you're on the ends. Jennifer. Okay.
I don't have a ton to report other than kind of echoing what Creston said about spring is here and things are moving so fast. And I think what I appreciate the most is having 2 children in the schools right now. The older one, who at this time, sort of elder elementary school, when they really the doors start opening in the schools and they start going out on all their field trips and they start going to see the high school performances, seeing, kind of what their future can look like. And it's really neat because my older one, we kind of missed that with COVID. So now the younger one, I'm starting to see it, and they're going to Olympia, and they're going to see the orchestra, and they're going to see the high school band play, and they're going to see the high school performances. And to kind of see that through her eyes, this was the first time. And so it's just really exciting. This season is really, it goes so fast, and like you look at the calendar and it's like, holy moly, every night is like stacked up with activities everywhere. So as much as we can keep up with them and our community can come in and experience all of the amazing things going on, I think it's a great time right now.
I think my comments are going to be more when we get into this discussion.
Okay.
Because that's really where it's focused.
Sure. David, you good?
Sure. First, I was in the dentist chair this morning and had my little thing on, my goggles, and the dental tech was talking to me about one of her daughters goes to Pioneer, and she was just talking about how much she loves her teachers, and she won the lottery to go to Pioneer, and then her other daughter goes to Discovery, and again, just talking about how much she loves her school and her teachers, and that her 3-year-old is, I guess, grandfathered into Pioneer. And so I was like, I was a captive audience, but for an hour, but at least it was all positive about how much her kids love her schools. And then as a ledge rep, I know that there's some districts across the state working on new positions and potential bylaw changes for the upcoming ledge session in September. we've had some good runs there in the past couple of years. I know that there had been some talk maybe about having a position for the WASDA handbook this year, maybe around literacy, and I can't remember what the other one was, but
Some stuff around facilities.
yeah, facilities. So the positions are due by April 8th. So if there's anything we want to put together, we have a couple weeks left to get that done. But other than that, that's it for me. Thank you.
I don't have much that I can't save for the study session, but just to reiterate how proud I am of the athletes and schools that shared. And I sadly missed the last meeting where Gig Harbor shared, but just to say that I think winter sports, there's a special vibe at all the state competitions, because I think just the fact that they're indoors and you can see the bands and the people, and people can interact more, whether it's in a arena or whatever, the environment is just ripe for just fun and festivity. So it was really cool to see statewide a lot of competitions, but particularly the success that our schools had. So thanks for sharing.
Okay, I'll keep it short. I do want to start by acknowledging that it's been a tough week. And I know we have a lot of our staff with us here. I know that you go home carrying a lot of the weight that your students and your families feel, and it becomes your own. So just know that you have our support and that we're in it with you. So however, we as a board can be more supportive of the work that you do, and we share it with you. So thank you for showing up every day for the kids, because oftentimes when they come into that building, yours is the only smile they see, the only time someone hears their name, and the time that someone knows that they are cared about. So thank you for that work. And in contrast to that, what a joy it is to be able to go into these buildings and see students perform. So I had the pleasure of going to the Purdy Talent Show, which is just the stinking cutest thing I have seen in a long time. And then that night I also went to the Peninsula High School band concert, which it was phenomenal. I mean, the talent that these young people have, it just blows my mind. And I'm not surprised, after having heard from a lot of our band students, that they plan to go on and do this as a career, because they should, because they are exceptionally talented. Also, Into the Woods, that performance, unbelievable. The set was just gorgeous. So well done, everyone who's put in work that way. It's just really such a pleasure to see. I went to the pancake breakfast. It was delicious. It's so fun to see Brian run into the school, because there's always some kind of a panic that's happening, like always a toaster or a griddle or something. So he's just strolling in for breakfast, and it's immediately, Brian, we're locked down because we set off the smoke detectors. But thank you for always being willing to step up and get things going along with our communities and schools. That was a fun morning. And just a shout out to the AVID program, particularly at Peninsula High School. I will share that my mother, who is a retired middle school teacher, has been out of the classroom for about 10 years now, and she's been volunteering with the Peninsula Scholarship Foundation as a reader for the scholarship notebooks. She was not familiar with the AVID program, but she calls every day to tell me how impressed she is with someone. And then she asked, have you ever heard of AVID? And I said, yes, Mom, as a matter of fact, I have. But she has really noticed, just in the notebooks, the organization that these students have and the opportunities that they have and the similarities that they have in how they present themselves. So I hope that's something that we can grow and expand upon, because that's really a program that, again, not to use the same word twice, but a game changer for students. So with that, what I think we'll do is take a 5-minute break, and then we will come back here. So we are now done with the business portion of the meeting, and we will continue on with the study session on HIB when we get back.
Good to see you.
That's what they told me. That was kind of the rumor at Midday Road, wasn't it? Because I was at Midday Road last week, and everybody was saying about it. They were saying, man, the smoke out of the fire alarm. They weren't letting off the hook.
You might need to give them a few more minutes, like 9 or 20 people
I
for
know.
the restroom.
Yeah.
Better badge? Do you have the 24/7 badge? Preston and I are 24/7. Now I know my limit.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Couldn't respond to your text.
Oh, no, I know.
No, I haven't
I'm
heard
trying
from
to.
Mary.
Okay.
I was hoping that one of you would ping it, you know.
I've got to be careful so that I don't
Yeah, I know,
cross
I know,
that
I know.
line, but
I know.
might be able to. I don't see Sam in the building much anymore, but if I see Sam,
Yeah.
if I see Sam, I'll talk to him personally. I won't send him a text because I don't want.
Yeah.
I try to guard my. Try to guard my public record. So even 6 years ago, when my middle son went to college, he was playing football at Eastern, and I said, "Hey, Dad, did you see the thing about I was in my class that went to the Air Force?" So there's a son who's grade that came out of the Air Force. All at the Air Force Academy. I said, "Yes." I don't care who he loves. Can he play safety well? I mean, yeah, so. I think it's broader than that. My wife sees a lot of things called, she's got a school that's kind of nurseries, so it really draws. But I just hormonal stuff. They're trying to figure out. This is normal.
All right, what I failed to mention was the time and location of our next meeting before we move on. So our next business meeting will be Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024, 6 o'clock p.m. here at Swiftwater. And we will now move on to our study session. So this is a different setup than we're used to. Sometimes for study sessions, we go out and we do rotating tables. We wanted it to be in here because I know this is of great import to a lot of our community. We wanted to make sure that it was all available to be replayed back on our YouTube channel. So we're going to do it like this. If you are comfortable in this setup, great. If I don't know, if you want to move around, feel free to move around, whatever makes most sense. But for those in the audience, this is an opportunity for the board to communicate with our staff members here. This is our time to learn and ask questions. So I appreciate if we can allow the board and our staff members to have these open communications and for us to ask our questions and our staff to address that. So I'm going to call, is it Dan and John, are you going to kick it off? And
I'll start,
okay.
And then we'll make our way around. Thank you for having us this evening. In our classrooms, we emphasize learning targets, and the targets today is that when the board leaves, they'll have both a broad understanding of how we try to prevent bullying, harassment, intimidation, and discrimination. That's our proactive work, and some specific answers on how we handle those when they do occur, our reactive work, including addressing specific questions that you provided with us. provided to us. A piece of what you'll hear is the importance of context in knowing students. Our job is to teach respect for all students regardless of their differences, to teach compassion and empathy, and to teach restoration of relationships. We will cover policies and checklists, but consistency needs to be measured with context, keeping in mind that student safety is always as our top priority. You will hear an overview of the work that we do to prevent HIB and discrimination before it occurs, and you'll hear some scenarios based on commonly reported incidents and how we work through investigations with context again in mind. So before we start with our elementary table, Dan is going to share some district data.
Yes, good evening, and again, thank you for having us. And I want to start by thanking all of the administrators, counselors, and behind us are some of our communities and schools folks as well. John talked about the relationship piece, and the relationship piece, and these folks as counselors and NCIS folks, in addition to our administrators, they create strong relationships with kids. And that helps us not only on the proactive piece, but it also helps us on the end of some of those things in terms of being able to support our students and families. So I just wanted to start by thanking you all for being here. I would actually especially like to highlight our counselors. They have done some just really hard work this past week. All of them who are sitting here at the table. So we really appreciate you and everything that you've done, not only for our students, but also for our staff. So you're wonderful supports. And I just wrote some things down during the public comment. Care. Kids have to know we care, and they have to believe we care. So we're listening, and we've got great people who care a great deal, and we just need to keep working on those things. I'm going to share some data with you. I want to thank Carol Wingett, who works in our tech department. I asked her to pull some data, and she spent quite a lot of time pulling some data. I am short on one piece of data, and I will get that to the board. This is data we're going to share with administrators as well. I asked Carol to pull 4 years of data on harassment, intimidation, and bullying data, as well as incidents of discriminatory harassment. And so I want to share that with you before we turn it over to our administrators. HIB data, as it was recorded in Power School in terms of our discipline incidents. At the elementary level, in 2018-19, we had 14 incidents recorded of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. In 2021-22, we skipped 2019-20 and 2021. Those were our partial year COVID years. As we move forward to 2021-22, there were 27, almost double the number of incidents from 18-19. In 2022-2023, that nearly doubled again to 51. And this year, up through March 15th, we've had only 12. At the secondary level, this is where we have a gap year, and I apologize, we'll get that data for you later. In 2018-19, we had 24 incidents of HIB recorded. In 2021-2022, that number doubled, and then a little bit more to 53 incidents. Carol was busy pulling the data for 2022-23 for me. She didn't quite get there, but I will have that for you later as a board. But in 2023-24, this year, up through March 15th, we had 41 incidents. If that was a pace, at a regular pace, that means we would finish the year with 62, which is a little bit higher than our 21-22 total. Regarding discriminatory harassment, at the elementary level in 18-19, we had 0 incidents. In 21-22, we had 6. In 2022-23, we had 18. And thus far this year at the elementary level, we've had 7. So you see some trends in the middle of that data peaking at the elementary level and then having fewer this year. And we'll have those elementary folks, when they talk, they can talk about the work that they're doing proactively to reduce those numbers. At the high school level, in 2018-19, we had 10 incidents of discriminatory harassment. In 2021-22, we had 13. We're again missing that data for 22-23 right now. We'll have it for you at some point. And thus far this year at the secondary level, we've had 19. And if we stay on that pace, that means we'd finish the year with approximately 29. So we are seeing some increases at the secondary level. We are seeing some, those are the ones that have been responded to. So we're looking for it and we're paying attention for it and we're dealing with it. What I would say is all of those things, whether they're harassment, intimidation, and bullying, or whether they're discriminatory harassment, those are hurtful things. Whether they be words or actions, those are hurtful things. And I just want to say that because as we respond to those, I really appreciate some of the comments around the restorative work and the educative work that we need to do, because our students need to understand the impacts of their words and their actions. And so, again, our administrators will talk a little bit more about how they use not only exclusionary discipline, but how they use restorative work and educating students to understand the impacts of their words and actions. And we're working hard at that. And as I said at a previous meeting, we're always looking to get better. So on that note, I just wanted to give you that data. John and I will kind of come back at the end and cover some different things. But at this time, elementary principals and counselors, as you get started, would you please introduce yourselves as you get going as well? So I'm going to turn it over. I believe Mr. Herring and Miss Livingston Holiday are the first ones to kick it off there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. First of all, thank you. We're grateful for the opportunity to share and be involved in this critical work. I know that all of my colleagues and I take harassment, intimidation, bullying, and discrimination very seriously. And like Dan just so eloquently said, are always looking for ways to improve our systems. So our hope today is again, kind of reiterate what John had shared, is that we'll go through some of our proactive steps that we're taking, and then go through a couple scenarios that help illustrate the process that we take. And then my understanding is secondary will then essentially do the same thing that they do at their level. And so as we go around, we will introduce ourselves. So my name is Todd Herring, and I'm the principal at Minter Creek Elementary, and we're going to pass it on to Alex to get us kicked off.
Hello, my name is Alex McCauley. I'm the Communities and School Site Coordinator at Discovery Elementary School. Gig Harbor High School graduate though, so very connected to this district. It means a lot to
your awesome voice.
Okay.
Goes.
Okay. I don't know why I'm
We'll use
holding
this.
this in.
Let's hold that.
Okay. Okay. But yes, Gig Harbor High School graduate, and so very connected to the schools in this district, and I feel very, I wish that more of our folks were still in the building here right now to hear us talk about some of this stuff, because I feel very affected by some of the comments, and I'm really working towards seeing the change. And it starts at the elementary level. And so as a Communities and Schools Site Coordinator, one of the main things that I focus on at Discovery is reducing the stigma of our program, because I think it would be real easy for people to come into the building and think that we only work with kids that fit X criteria, or even multiple levels of disadvantage. And that is at the core of what we're trying to do, but at the same time, we want to be there for every student in the building. And so I feel like in a year and a half now, which is how long Communities and Schools has been at Discovery, I feel like I've done a really good job of reducing that stigma. And so no one ever really knows why a child might be coming to me. It could be to problem solve, it could be for basic needs support, it could be for academic support. And I feel like that's really helped create a good sense of belonging within our building. And we've seen behavior numbers go down. And one of the main reasons why I feel like is because of the preventative measures and a lot of the proactive approach that I take at least to, and our counselors and our administrators and our para support, everybody, is to go out to recess, meet these kids where they are at and beyond, and get down on their level and play Foursquare with them and do different things to build those relationships. Because for a student for them to feel comfortable enough to come and report something like this, and that's what we need to build that trust. It takes time, and I understand that a child who might be going through something, even if we already have a good relationship, still might not feel like it's the right time to do it, or I'm the right person for them to come to. But in doing things like using these behavior incentive tickets, so catching kids when they're doing something when they might not think that anyone's looking, that helps build that rapport, and that helps build that trust. And then over time, when something comes up, the hope is that they will come to me. They will feel comfortable seeing that, oh, Mr. Alex is always in Mrs. Halliday's office. Like, they are a team. We're always with our counselor. They're a team. They're always in this teacher's room or that teacher's room. We are all a team, and we're all people that they can come and support. And then, so that is the preventative measure, and that's what Communities in Schools focuses on. I know that's what the district is trying to focus on, and I feel like we're doing a good job. But then when it does come time for restorative practices at the elementary level, I feel like it is so crucial to get these kids in a room when tempers can still be high, but once you get to the secondary level, things can be more explosive, and you have to be more thoughtful about who you put in a room and how much time is spent between an incident and then an opportunity for restorative practices. With the young children, it's easier to get them in a room. It's easier to sit them down, mediate something, have them be face-to-face, and to take accountability for something that, you know, both parties wish probably didn't happen. And so I feel like that is what we've been working hard on at Discovery. I'll let the rest of the team speak, and I'll pass it over to my principal because we work hand in hand. We had the Communities in Schools founder come out to Gig Harbor actually this past summer, and after meeting us and talking to us about what we were doing, he was like, you guys are the model of what I envisioned 50 years ago when he started this nonprofit that is the nation's #1 dropout prevention. And so I feel really honored to have that, and I know Mrs. Halliday does too.
I'm going to jump in just real quick, though, and ask Sarah, Logan, and Adam, are you guys, can you feel like you can hear what's going on back there? If you want to, you can bring a chair and come sit up here. Where are you most comfortable? Are you good staying there? Okay. You don't want to be Sarah, do you want to come up here? You want to? Okay, come on up, Sarah. Come on up. Yeah. Yep. You might have to.
No pressure, though.
Nice. Oh my goodness. Okay. Sure. We don't want to leave you out. I think you guys are next. Okay. Yeah. No. All right. Thank you.
Actually, hi, I'm Allie Shepard, proud principal at Harbor Heights Elementary. This is our awesome school counselor, Elizabeth Jen Chow, and she is going to be talking about some of our proactive and preventative measures we focus on at the elementary level here in Peninsula School District.
Hello, I'm Miss G, the famous puppet master. Yeah. So I look at this list and I see we do everything. I think Allie has done a really good job of implementing all these systems. So, sorry, I didn't know that. Okay. So I think that she has done an awesome job with the staff and with the students and the community in general to have our school be more of a community school. We do good works. We do a lot of inclusionary practices. We have what is known as an inclusionary kickball team, where we have students who are differently abled partnered with students who are more typical, and that really brings a sense of such joy to those students. And I just wanted to give a shout out for that because I think that's the best thing we do. One thing that we have the Second Step program, and that is SEL. It is just Tier 1 completely. All the teachers teach it. And then the students come in if there are issues, and we discuss some of the things from the Second Step lessons when they come and meet me. There is also Kelso's Choices, where we have a problem-solving wheel. Now, Kelso's Choice, Kelso is this little green frog. The intermediate, probably 2nd through 5, don't buy into the little frog. They think he is very, beneath them. So we have figured out, we've taken Kelso's wheel and converted it to more of an intermediate appropriate tool so that the students can problem solve on their own and take accountability for their problems, because right now in elementary school is the time for them to learn some of those problem solving things that they can take on into adulthood. Now, of course, hopefully as an adult, they won't have the wheel in their house, but if they do, that's another good thing. So.
Can I ask you a question? Yeah. Are you all looking at your individual notes? Because we're just standing up here, and you said you're looking at this and you're doing everything, but I don't know what you're looking at.
Oh, sure. So it's okay. As an elementary team, we came together and discussed what are our common tools are guaranteed and viable tools that we have amongst our schools. What do we use day to day in each of our sites? And so the way we were going to explain that for you is to let each of a few of the team members speak to some of the strategies and tools that we're using and highlight some of the ways that they are living in action in our school, right? So we can have second step or Kelso's choices or problem-solving wheels. But what Ms. G did explain is when we have those strategies that kids can use, sometimes they need a little more support. And that is why our counseling program is so strong and so important, because they can go and they can get some additional support to solve problems that maybe they can't solve on their own. So we're going to highlight a few other, we call them tier 1 strategies that all students have access to in our elementary schools. And I think Delana's up next.
Yeah, thank you. And we have a copy of it coming around right here too, so you can take a look at it. It was just a list. We just wanted, as a team, to make sure that we had everything that covered. We wanted it all for you.
So could we ask?
Yes.
Could we get this then and send that to the board at a later date? Okay.
Absolutely.
That would be
yes,
great.
Easy. Yeah. Of course, we're having the preventative information for you of the things that we put in place beforehand to try to avoid incidents from actually happening, because that is the best thing, right? If the incidents do not happen in the first place. And so, as you've heard, it comes down to a basic education of how to talk to each other, communicate with each other, whether it is the polite pleases and thank yous, whether it is I need to solve a problem when students are in conflict, to give them common vocabulary and ways to talk to each other, and then also with adults who are aware of those strategies to work with students when conflicts do arise. Because conflicts arise. It doesn't necessarily mean that's harassment, intimidation, or bullying, but that's part of the thing that we teach students is to look at when something is a backpack problem, which is something you can handle, or a suitcase, right? Yes, suitcase problem, which is so big you need to go to an adult for help. Because that is one of the big things to help students recognize is when is something you can do and take care of, and when is something so big that you definitely need help. And we have students on both sides of that. We have students who do not step out soon enough with a suitcase problem and they're trying to handle it themselves, and we want them to know that they have trusted adults around them that are eager to help solve these problems with them. And there are some students who come with backpack problems a lot, and we want to help them recognize their power and empower them to solve those other types of problems. Because when they get to middle school and high school, we want them to have all of these skills to go with them. So we talk about, she mentioned that wheel earlier. That wheel is a bunch of choices, a bunch of ways to help resolve and solve problems before they become bigger. So trying to teach that conflict resolution when they're younger. So some of the other things we do, just to name off a few on this list here, is that we also have our Safe Schools training, as I'm sure you're aware of, for our staff to go through. Everyone's required to do it, and so that is a board requirement, district requirement for all of our staff to do, just to have that basic level of understanding. In a similar way that we have second step for all of our students, we also have our training for staff, and we also provide professional development during our BPD days. It's redundant because days is in there twice. That's what threw me off. In some of our schools, we also do lots of supervisor training for our recess staff, which is where quite a few conflicts happen, to help them also with that increased supervision, active supervision training, and things like that. Let's see. We do a lot going throughout the year to support students with behaviors and just trying to build the relationships right away. And as we go through, one of the things that I just want to chime in really fast with is that there's a big difference between fitting in and belonging. Because if somebody fits in, it means they have changed who they are to conform to what's around them. And I appreciate the board's focus on belonging. That we want all of our students we want this to be a place where they belong. They don't feel like they have to alter who they are deep down inside to be accepted and loved. Okay.
All right, thank you. So a lot of those were some of the tier 1 supports that we provide. Again, for those who aren't aware, tier 1 means everybody don't have to have a special need or a special situation happen, everyone gets it. And so a couple other things that are more kind of a tier 2-ish, which are then, you know, a little bit beyond just the tier 1, maybe might be a little more targeted, or even tier 3 where they're super specialized and super targeted. A couple of those things that also go into the preventative is looking at some of the data that we get. And there are two main kind of SEL data that we get. One is what many of us affectionately refer to as SRSI. It is SRSS-IE, and no, I do not know what that
Dance. Do we need a dance?
stands for. I don't think there's been enough movement to trigger those. And so I'll just keep talking. The SRSI is it teachers do it about our students, and so there's a long list of different categories of does a student present in this way or this way? Things like how do they handle conflict, or do they tend to make excuses? Or there's a whole bunch of different things that go through. And what this does is a quick snapshot that we do 3 times a year that shows whether a student is more an internalizer or an externalizer. Meaning, if they're an internalizer, they may not come to you and say, "Hey, I got this," or "This thing's going on." They a lot of times they kind of keep it inside, and those are the ones that we all focus on the internalizers and the externalizers, but the externalizers a lot of times we'll notice those. They're the kiddos that we see acting up, but it's those internalizers that for a long time before this SRSI, a lot of us were really frustrated with. Like we may not have known how to interact with them necessarily, or how to get them to share. And so this data, it maps it all out. Is it perfect? No, but it shows a lot of the students that maybe might have gotten missed in the past. And then the other one is Panorama, which is a student survey where they take it twice a year. And that's one of those where we get a lot of that sense of belonging, because there's an actual category that charts that. And so they take it in the fall and they take it in the spring, and a lot of times we'll compare over the year, also compare the year to the next year, all the way from sense of belonging to teacher-student relationships. There's a lot of factors on there. And so we use a lot of that data to help guide maybe next year, or even next month maybe, depending on when that data gets to us, of setting some targets on. And our SIP plans have that SEL goal in there of the sense of belonging. Another one that also helps inform kind of what we do is what we call our MTSS Behavior Supports Hub, which has a lot of resources, a lot of links that a lot of people smarter than I have helped put together. And so, hey, we've got an issue here, student is kind of fallen in this, or I'm struggling with this. It's a great resource tool that all administrators have and all teachers have access to as well. And then another form of data is looking at discipline data. And so if we're looking at maybe this month as we meet as a BLT, and we're looking at, we're seeing a rise in incidences that happen at recess. What does that mean? Is it just because we've been outside more, we've been whatever it might be, maybe at indoor recess and it was just a rough day? Or is there really something going on? Maybe we don't have enough supervision in a certain location, or this is popping up, so we need to be more focused on that. So we're not waiting necessarily for problems to happen, but we're tracking the data and we're seeing what is working. Also, it shows, hey, we're not seeing issues here. What are we doing here that's well that maybe we can replicate in other areas? So a lot of that is data focus as well. It's not just that touchy-feely type of thing, which is important, but we also need to support it with data a lot of times. And then kind of coupling back with the second steps, one of the units focuses just on bullying prevention and helping, and Del spoke to it a little bit too, is the difference between just being mean and bullying. And it's really important to know the difference. And so helping with that verbiage and just understanding the language. If it's bullying, it is bullying. We need to address it this way. If it's being mean, then it's being mean, and we need to address it this way. So it helps inform kind of those next steps. This list that's in front of you is not exhaustive by any means. There's a lot of different things. And so when it is shared with you at a later date, please don't assume that it is everything we do, but it is kind of that snapshot of what the bulk of it is done. And then the last thing I'll end on is each school, just like each child, has some uniqueness to it. We all have our own different contexts. We have our own culture. We have our own climate, all those different things. So what we might deal with at Minter Creek might be a little bit different at another school because we are responsive to our individual students, not just painting with broad strokes of this is a big thing for everybody. Well, no, we really dive down into the weeds because this is so important. So I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, I was just going to pass off to my next crew. So if wait.
I'm really interested in this Circe that you were talking about, because I have a really strong recollection of when one of my children was coming through, at the beginning of the year, the teacher sent home something for parents to fill out that sounds like it had some similar questions on it, like would you say your child responds to adversity, or do they external or internal, all these things. And I remember being really struck with how useful that hopefully would be for the teacher. And I didn't realize that at schools you have that as well. And so I'm curious did you say that was tier 1 or tier 2?
It's tier 1 in the fact that every student and every teacher does it. Mm-hmm. But some of the results lead to some tier 2 or even tier 3 interventions.
Gotcha.
So like most of the students kind of come out that aren't in what it's categorized yellow or red. The yellow is those who show kind of a heightened need for some interventions. So we might work with them. That'd be more maybe like a tier 2 where we do some targeted interventions. Some might come out in red. Their number is just higher and it's more intensive. So that would be more of a tier 3 intervention where we have a lot more wraparound services for that student.
Todd, could I ask John Yellowlees and Chris to come up and speak to that specific tool? Okay. Yeah. I'm looking at both of them, and they're both pointing at each other, but they both have the answers.
But as you think about the 2 data points that Todd was talking about, the SRSSIE is teachers' snapshot of what they're seeing. They don't actually take that screener until they've been with the kids for 6 to 8 weeks, letting kids settle in, understand school, be a part of it. And then it's really like we ask them to take it within 5 to 10 minutes. Like, it's your gut reaction. How does this, it allows us to really take what students need something different, that they're not getting their needs met in that classroom. Whereas the panorama for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, they're now reporting to us what they're thinking and feeling. So there are 2 pieces of data that can be used very differently. The SRSSIE really allows us to target students. Panorama really lets us get a building feel of what's happening, and it doesn't really target individual students. It's more about what's happening in your building.
I'll just kind of add to that. It's the student risk screening scale. So it's kind of like we've talked a lot about reading screening. So this is kind of like DIBELS. We do DIBELS 3 times a year to identify students with reading difficulties. This identifies students who may have, like Todd alluded to, either internalizing behavioral concerns or externalizing behavioral concerns. So teachers will go through that, fill out a screening scale for each of the students in their classroom. Like Abby said, after they get to know the students 3 times a year. So we're measuring whether or not there are students that the externalizing behaviors are pretty obvious to see. They're out front and evident, but some of the internalizing behaviors typically we don't notice as much, and it could involve anxiety, it could involve depression, those kind of behaviors. So it's a universal screener that we do for all students, and teachers are filling those out.
John, can you just clarify, does that go home to the parent?
No,
Okay.
sorry. That's a tool for teachers to fill out, just like our teachers do the DIBELS assessment too. So there are behavior rating scales that a counselor or a psychologist might send home for a parent to fill out. That's not what this is, though. That's a different type of rating scale.
Is it only elementary? Does it follow the student? Does it go all, like?
It's K through 12.
It's K through 12. That's really interesting, because I'm just, my brain's kind of going wild right now because I've watched the evolution of one of my children go from an externalizer to an internalizer, which I think may be very common as from young to old, or maybe it goes the other way, but man, that internalizing, that is tough stuff.
Yeah, and I think it was probably about 5 years ago that we started using this as part of our multi-tiered systems of support to really identify those students. And again, it really is around more around those internalizing behaviors, but it helps measure progress as we put interventions in place over the course of the school year. We would hope to see a decrease, obviously, in those externalizing and internalizing behaviors as interventions are applied to help mitigate that.
I just want to mention too that as a Communities in Schools member, what we do is we come in and we cater our own tier 2 and tier 3 level supports for case managed students that align a lot with what the district defines as a tier 2 and a tier 3 as well. And so like on the bottom of your sheet, you'll see like the small groups as needed. And so we'll come in and we'll take students who we feel like could benefit from being with each other in a small group and do a lot of the same work there. Whereas like a tier 1 for us would be me going out and doing some sort of recess intervention if something's happening out there, something that will affect the whole school in general. And then just a quick little success story, because I feel like we need more of those. We had the Goodman Band come and visit Discovery today, and 2 students who were in 2 different tier 2 groups of mine last year came up and said, "We're best friends now. Did you ever think that this would happen?" And Delana and I turned to each other, not really, but at the same time, it's like, that's the intent. That's what we're hoping for. So that was really good to see today.
All right. Sorry, I just jumped in earlier. I'm Abby Barabee. I'm the principal at Vaughan. And I have Dustin Wyrick with me. He's my fantastic teammate, my go-to counselor. Just one quick shout out to teachers, just to recognize that teachers teach academics, tier 1 academics, reading, writing, math, and now they teach social emotional learning, right? We have the second step curriculum. They teach it, they commit to it. And 4 years ago, they might not have all taught it consistently, but now they do. And that's really amazing. And to Chris Hegel for Magic School AI, I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but literally if you have a behavior concern, you can type it in there and it lists ideas and supports for teachers immediately to work with students. So there's no wait time. There's no waiting for MTSS or SCT. They can get that help right away. It's awesome. Okay. So I'm going to move on to a scenario for you. And Allie's also going to share a scenario that are things that we've experienced at elementary. So really, when we have a report that comes in, however the report comes in, quite often in elementary, we get a phone call from a parent. They're going home, they're sharing with mom and dad, something happened. 5th graders are pretty creative about sending us Schoology messages too, so they'll get those out. But we also have the vector alerts, which I don't personally get too often, but we do have the alerts there, and that's great for parents to feel like they have an avenue that they can get to us with. When we get that report, we have 12 days to respond to the report. 2 days to contact the families. We've got 5 days to complete our investigation and 5 more school days to implement those corrective actions. And it's really purposeful because there should be no wait time for a targeted student. They need to feel safe in their environment. They need to know somebody's listening to them. That word care comes out. That's our timeline. So this year, for example, I received a complaint from a parent via phone call that her son or daughter was being bullied in the lunchroom. She had said that another student was spitting on his food. You can imagine how that would feel, like you're eating lunch and somebody spits on your food. Now you can't eat it. Fortunately at Vaughan, we do have free food for everyone, so any child can get it, but that's not the case everywhere. So my initial screening is I'm going to find out from that targeted student. I'm going to investigate with him or her first. I want to know who was the aggressor. Talk to me about who's doing this to you. Who were the witnesses? Who else was there? I need to get a really good picture of it because I generally am not there. So I want to get all those people. And then I want to sit and I want to listen. And I just take notes. I'm an active listener, hearing, what is he or she sharing with me? What are the concerns? Has this happened one time? Has this happened multiple times? What was your response to this incident? In this one, I did speak to that targeted student first to understand what happened in the lunchroom. It was the first time it had happened. And so I asked him, what was the circumstances? Like, were you guys playing? Were you talking about something? Was somebody laughing? I want to understand all the details. I went to the aggressor next, and I sat down with this person and asked him, hey, I have a report that you have been spitting on somebody's food. I'm talking like a rapper now. Okay. You want to listen to the commonalities that you're hearing in all their stories. What's happening? What do you notice? What are your what patterns are you seeing? And then finally, I listen to all the witnesses, because by then I can draw some questions that I want to actually ask the witnesses. I've heard what the aggressor has said. I've heard what the targeted student has said. What are some questions that they might not have seen or heard? Once I have all of my investigation done, and that's within that 2 to 5 day range, usually I personally won't wait much longer than 1 or 2 days unless the world is blowing up, but you get right to it. In this incident, I reviewed all my notes. I will often chat with Dustin at this point because, he is kind of my colleague. He knows my students really well there. He also has a really good perspective on what's happening with all the kids. He'll say, hey, this is what I found out. Do you have anything that you want to add to it? We usually have a pretty good conversation about it. This incident, I was not able to identify that it was a harassment, intimidation, and bullying situation because it happened one time. And all the witnesses that were there could really say that the aggressor was telling a joke, and that while the targeted student did not enjoy that joke, everybody around him was laughing. So we're leading up to a bullying incident. We're hearing these things that could be, because potentially bystanders are coming in, but it was currently just a one-time incident. And so that's where this is like the most important point in my mind in a HIB report, because now I have the opportunity to intervene before this can even go on. Like, I have the opportunity to stop this. So my goal at this point is to change that behavior of the bystanders and the aggressor, and make sure that the targeted student feels like he or she has an outlet to report if this were to happen again. The real key here is that targeted student is validated and empowered moving forward, so they know they feel safe in their environment and they can talk to people about it. I really want to make sure, this being the first incident, I really wanted to work on that restorative piece between the targeted student and the aggressor, but you really got to wait for that targeted student to feel ready. They have to be ready to talk and have that conversation. And so as we move forward, I'm going to let Dustin kind of talk about some of the corrective measures. He and I play a really valid part in each other's as we move forward to these, because we support the targeted student and we support the aggressor. And we support the bystanders. There's a large group of students that we have to really work with here, and so each group looks a little bit different. Ready?
Do you want me to talk specifically about this or in general?
Any measures,
Okay.
yeah, corrective measures in general, yeah.
So a typical measure that we would take is, well, first of all, the goal is to make sure everyone feels safe. And so a typical one might be that I have a regular check-in with, let's say, the target. And to make sure that each week they know that they're going to have a person that they can talk to about anything that's been happening that week. And also, I'm going to show them how they can get a hold of me between our visits, that is not the only time they can tell me about problems that they're having with students. And so we're going to work on that. I'm going to assess during that time whether it is possibly an acquisition problem, like they have not acquired all the skills necessary to deal with a conflict. So they go right to it. This is bullying, as opposed to having some tools to work on. So that might mean that I'm doing that one-on-one with them, or there might be some other kids that fit in that same thing, and we might have a small group where we're talking about conflict management. Similarly, the person that's doing the bullying or is causing conflicts with students, we're going to be assessing whether this is a skill deficit or a process problem where they might need some sort of intervention that would track their behavior, possibly a behavior chart, or maybe a check in, check out, which is where maybe they're looking for adult approval, or maybe they're looking for child approval, or there's peer approval, which would be like a peer mentoring kind of situation as an intervention, and we would track to see if that is improving their behavior over time. So those would be primarily the my first go-tos, I would say, when we're going to do some sort of corrective action from a counseling perspective.
And I think at that point, it just becomes progressive discipline. Should the incident happen again, or something to that same point with a student, the same targeted or the same aggressor, we look at progressive discipline. If a parent, once the incident's complete, I will write a formal letter to the parent explaining my results. Here's everything that happened. Along the way, we always communicate with parents when we meet with their child before we bring them in. So even if it's a bystander, a witness, we'll call the parent, hey, I want to let you know we're talking to so-and-so about this incident. Please let me know if they share anything with you, because at an elementary age, their safest person is their parents, their parent or guardian, and so it's really important. We'll write up a letter. This letter, we were not able to find that it was a HIB incident. However, here's the corrective measures we're going to take in place to make sure this student feels supported. And then if the parent wants to appeal, which is absolutely their right, at that point I would send that up to John Helwick, our assistant superintendent, to then kind of have the next step with the investigation. Is there something we missed? So I'll turn it over to Allie now, and she will talk to you about another one.
Okay. Abby did a great job of explaining the timeline and the procedure. I'm going to give you the perspective of when you find a yes to a HIB complaint or an allegation. So after doing a full investigation, if a administrator finds that yes, a HIB occurred, as Abby stated, we are in contact with the family of both parties along the way. But the ultimate plan is to create, when you find a HIB was yes, there was a violation, you create a support and safety plan, right? And also an intervention plan, both for the victim and the aggressor. So what does that look like? In our level of elementary school, that can look like disciplinary action. It could be alternate recess for a student for a period of time. It could be a supervised lunch setting, or excuse me, a lunch location where they have to sit in a assigned spot in the lunchroom. It could be a myriad of things, but when you look at creating a support plan, you want to make sure this does not occur again, right? So for the victim, you are making sure that they are not in proximity of the student for now, for a period of time. And for the aggressor, making sure that whoever is there, if they have a case manager or they may see the counselor, that they have supports in place to learn from their actions. And we've talked a little bit about restorative practice. There is a time and a place for that, and depending upon the severity of the incident, it may happen and it may not, right? We are working in close partnership with our counselor, our support teachers. We're making sure that the students are ready for the time and place when a restoration may be possible, and there are times where it's not. We do note these things in Power School. So if there is a HIB violation for a student, it is noted in Power School and along with the safety support plan. So for example, if a student is a 5th grader and this should occur, that plan follows them into the middle school. And so we have had one support plan that followed a student last year on to Goodman, and then this year we had a support plan for a student that we are still implementing and following. And again, Abby explained the process for the appeal. When it is a yes for a HIB concern, the appeal process for disciplined students is outlined in the WAC. The HIB appeals process is for the targeted student. So it's entirely different. They are different processes for discipline versus HIB. If the targeted student's family disagrees with the findings of the principal, designees, or the designee's investigation, they can appeal that decision to the superintendent and then to the school board. So again, at our level, we are really focused on safety, support, intervention, proactive, preventative, but there are times that harassment, intimidation, and bullying do occur. And in that case, we create supports to mitigate that happening in the future.
Can I say a few things now? So for me, first I want to thank the partnerships that we have with communities in school, AVID, because AVID provides a trusted adult with the kids, and as well as with Crossroads. So I appreciate those partnerships. The data that Dan put out for the elementary schools for 18 and 19, there were 14 across the district, which was about 4 per year. For all the schools combined, 4 per year, which is not overly pervasive in 18 and 19 in elementary school as far as those kind of incidents. But then in post-COVID, they went up quite a bit. And so as far as 21, 22, and then we don't have the 22, 23 data, but it dropped quite a bit. Actually in 23, 24, it dropped below the 18, 19. So I know this is going to be, I got a couple questions, but I'm going to see if you can answer this one first. Do you believe that the increase in bullying in the elementary schools in 21, 22 and 22, 23 spiked quite a bit, and in 23, 24 it went to 12, okay? So it's down to 12. So it's gone completely the opposite direction almost before 18, 19. So do you think the majority of that is the lack of social interaction during COVID? That's my first question.
First, I would say that those numbers aren't necessarily incidents of bullying, but of reported. Okay. But I would say that, yes, I think across the board, probably TK-12, we would say that the lack of social interaction and opportunities to do so definitely played a big major factor.
I would think. Go ahead.
Oh, and that's why in our daily schedules at the elementary level, we have dedicated time to social emotional learning. It is an expectation that all classrooms at the elementary level are focused on social emotional learning, which is second step. It could be class meetings. It could be talking about problems in the classroom and ways to remedy those. So we are all in at the elementary level for a period of time during our school day. And so I can't speak to what happened, pre-COVID. I wasn't here, but I know where we're at now and that intentionality. And we do call that guaranteed and viable, that in classrooms to classrooms across our district, students are getting opportunities to practice and learn about social and emotional learning.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I can say yes, that as part of, you've heard John talk a lot about our overall MTSS effort over the past 4 years and through COVID. And the idea is, as we came out of COVID and as we got into more maturity into that MTSS initiative, that there would be that consistency across schools. And that's what Allie was just describing. And we do have that.
Yeah. Well, that's why I know that social interaction for youngest kids is the play and the social interaction is extremely important for them to learn how to interact socially. And I know that middle schoolers are going through their own unique changes, as well as high schoolers. Their social interaction needs are different over the spectrum of that K-12. So that's what I'm saying. I think that from what I can see on the data, the elementary school kids missing out, especially the youngest ones, missing out on that year or two of social interaction in elementary. And then when they did come back, they had the masks, so they didn't get to see each other and interact in that way. So I just was wondering how much of that was in.
Yeah, and I'd also like to speak to how we use the data, so that SRSSIE and the panorama data. Every school does it a little bit different, as our colleagues explained. But it is having an intentional tiered support within your building. So using your community partners, CISP, the counselor, right? We have across our buildings, we have our custodians doing check and connect with kids, because they are amazing humans that impact the energy and environment for our students. You could have your health room tech have one student that is they're check and connecting with that student. So we are bought in on all means all, and we're here to support our students. And I think as an elementary team, we are very closely aligned to that.
Yeah, and I want to, just to piggyback off what some of the folks that came up to the podium says, that obviously not everyone reports. And so, when I say that it doesn't appear on its face to be pervasive, if there's only 4 per year, but I'm sure there were some that maybe perhaps many that didn't go reported. And those are the ones that I want to make sure that we're not missing out on in the future, that we figure out how to get to the ones that are not comfortable reporting. And hopefully we can make some progress on that. And with that, I want to just segue. So what are our proactive approaches to working with parents to get their engagement on this, to help them and their kid feel more able to
sure. That's a perfect segue to this next piece. So thank you for that. I completely agree, and I think, or we think, another reason why some of that reporting was elevated right after COVID is the intentionality that a lot of us have spoken about, that we are encouraging people to speak up and speak out, and we are actively empowering our students and our families to be vocal, and we are, and I can speak for all of my colleagues because I know they do the same, working to be more accessible. And so how do we do that? Through being out in the community, by having community events come in, by having communities and schools reach out, by having our counselors reach out, our teachers reach out, our paraeducators reach out. Don't know that our custodians are quite reaching out yet, but everyone is reaching out and making those relationships so that it is more of a two-way communication, not us speaking at our communities, but speaking with them. And so Abby alluded to that. Part of it is just making it like I said, letting parents know that as long as we get the information, that's the most important thing. So if a student comes to us, wonderful. But if they're not comfortable, or maybe they were too caught up in whatever was going on to be able to articulate it, when they go home, they might share something. And so the families can share with us. So the biggest thing is relationships. You've heard it a lot of times. I know you all believe it as well, is establishing those relationships with our families so that they feel safe in coming and reporting to us. And sometimes the families are the ones reporting it. If the students do, wonderful, but as long as we're getting the information, that's the most important thing, so that we can then act upon it, so we don't lose those students, or they don't fall in between and don't feel heard, don't feel seen.
I was just going to say really quick to add on to that, like when we do bullying prevention lessons, you do see a rise. Like it's just because kids now know how to do it. They are reminded, they understand it. And so what you'll see right now too in spring, because we're in school for so long, March Madness, we'll see a rise right now because they're together, they're working together, and Dustin could speak to it a lot more than I could, but just that we're talking about it, we're very aware of it, and kids are now feeling confident enough to talk about it, and parents too.
Well, yeah, that's a good segue, because I'm curious, you'll be happy to know that Kelso's Wheel with the Frog is on my fridge still, and that it was like, it's quoted very somewhat with a great authority by the youngest member of my household. But my curiosity is, when, just like you were saying, Abby, there's an attention on it and there's awareness when you're in the school day in the building. How much are you seeing of this as school bus, lunch, recess, and those unstructured times, right?
Always. I mean, that's the number one, right? And that's why we think about, like, when we structure our schedules, like how much supervision can we have, as well as how often, like those supervised times, lunch, recess, generally are paraeducators that are supervising them. We have to make sure that our students see our paraeducators and our teachers working in a partnership, the same way that our students have to see us working with their parents as a partnership. And so when I say to a student, hey, we're going to call mom and dad together, we're going to talk about this together, it's literally speakerphone. Hey, Mr. and Mr. So-and-so, I've got so-and-so here. We'd love to work together on this process, because it is a partnership. And when I'm done with that conversation and a student walks away, I have to remind mom and dad, you are their number one advocate. You are the person they trust the most. I need you to reach out to me and talk to me if they're telling you something. And parents really have to see that open door for us, which is hard because we're not always in our office, very rarely. But, you know, how do we make sure that we have those times that we're calling people back? Because that partnership is so huge. And the language, I mean, I can say all of us put it out on our Parent Square newsletters. Maybe 50% are reading it, but those 50% know exactly what I'm talking about. If we're wearing orange on Friday because orange is Respect Day, I see parents wearing orange because it's that partnership again.
So I was going to say one thing real quick, is that one of the things that you made a comment about was that the teachers are doing SEL, and, you know, I don't know if it's an overreach to say this, but, you know, teachers have a lot on their plate, and teachers aren't counselors, and so if teachers are now having to serve as quasi-social emotional counselors, what are we doing for professional development for our teachers to make sure that they are appropriately able to handle counseling role as a teacher? And then what do they do if they find out that the parent isn't their child's biggest advocate and maybe there's an issue at the home? How do they handle that?
Well, I would disagree that social emotional learning hasn't always been a solid practice in classrooms across America for a long time. As a 25-year educator, when I was in year 2 of my career, I was building classroom community. I was addressing the character of building children up to get along nicely, to grow up nicely, to be good citizens. That is what social emotional learning is. So while it may be a curriculum that is second step, that is new, and teachers have gotten support, that thank you for providing professional learning days, building professional development days, our collaboration Wednesdays. Those are the problems of practice, and those are the things that we are working with our staff on during those days, because you are right. It does take both the art and the science of teaching, but social emotional learning is not new. It is just something that now is more important. It is so important, right? Because it builds community, and we know that now. We learn about things over time with research, and research is showing that has a long-term yield and academic success. So I just want to add that it's not new, but it is more focused and dedicated, and our teachers get support through those times that you allot in our district calendar. So thank you for that.
I apologize if I didn't quote that quite right. I just want to make sure that our teachers are having to teach more with the heart and to understand maybe what the kids are going through.
Right.
I just want to make sure we're giving them the tools.
Absolutely. Okay. And I think at all of our buildings, we focus on both social, emotional, and academics. And we collaborate on that, around that as a team, as an elementary team of leaders.
I would just like to comment too that not only are the teachers doing it now from what I've seen, but also the next generation of teachers are so aware of these challenges and these struggles. I've gone up to the BSU meetings at the high school, the Teacher Academy program that is run through all 3 of the high schools here in the district. And those students are so aware of what is coming once they get into the workforce and the students who they're going to be working with. And so that makes me really hopeful. And we're also trying to practice as much partnership as possible, as evidence with like the garden project and getting more students to come into the building that look like the students that we're trying to serve, because we understand too that is a challenge as well. And so whether it is having BSU members partner with our student council, which they're doing right now to support a local nonprofit for prom project, that's happening. The garden project, that's not the first time that Discovery's tried to partner with Henderson Bay, and we've done it successfully, as you know, I'm sure we may talk about later when we get to secondary, but those things are happening as well, because I know that the DEI aspect of all of this is also very it's tricky to try to navigate, but we're wading through those waters. We're trying, and so that's happening too together. Yeah.
Before we move on to secondary, are we ready?
Can I jump in on my elementary colleagues? I just want to say also that SEL doesn't have to be separate from your regular classroom instruction. It's built in throughout the whole thing. It's part of having an equitable classroom is that you do it. It's not a thing that you do and then you forget about it. It's throughout your whole day in how our teachers teach and the expectations that we create.
There's been questions about counselors, number of counselors. We are staffed at a higher ratio than most districts for our counselors, way above what the state actually funds us through the prototypical funding model. In a former district, I was a principal at an elementary with a 0.5 counselor, and I can tell you the difficulty of that. But we have 1.0 at each of our 10 schools, so I think that's important to note. Are we ready now for secondary? Secondary? Okay. Thank you, elementary team.
You want me to go? Okay. Mike Benoit, Peninsula High School. What they said so, is you don't get off that easy. Thank you. Yes, so social media is a big piece of this. So, but really, we're prevention is 90% of what we're trying to do really is create a space for kids and maintain an environment that is respectful, it's safe, and people feel valued, and that the staff, the adults in the building, are approachable, that students feel like our doors are open. More than anything, one of our biggest tools is just visibility and being out in the building. When I'm not out of the building at meetings or things like that, I would expect that kids see me multiple times during the course of a day because I'm out, and as well as the other administrators and counselors and staff with the expectation that we're trying to be in the hallway during passing time. And like Jennifer said, the loosely structured times of the day are when most of these things happen. In addition to things that happen outside of the school day through social media, through their phones, through their networks that actually come in the door in the morning or throughout the course of the day that we're responding to. So Also try to, as much as we want the students to feel we're accessible, we want the parents to feel the same way. So anytime we have audience with parents, or we're sending our Hawk Talk newsletters home every other Friday, thanks to Danielle, we want it to be invitational, and we want to communicate that we want to be a partner with you. So, and like the elementary said, we've gone through this MTSS work. We have the behavior matrices in every single classroom. We have a behavior matrix that were designed by departments, and also for all of our common spaces around the building, which identify the expectations around respect, responsibility, and resiliency. And we use those to teach at the beginning of the year. We do have grade level assemblies that go through not just HIB, but they go through a variety of expectations and things that we want kids to know at the beginning of the year to set them up for success throughout the year. And we revisit those things throughout the year. When we come back from a break, we'll have those grade level assemblies again to revisit. A lot of our social emotional work does happen in throughout the day, as everybody's mentioned, but also we have homeroom where we have some character strong lessons that happen during homeroom. Other thing I'd say is I think in a great school, in a strong school, there's student voice all over the place. It's really evident. And for us to really lean on our kids to help us with this and help set the culture and set the tone. And so we work with our leadership kids. We just had a Share the Love Month in February, so they spent a week on with the focus of love your school, a week on love your community, love yourself, and love others. We also have our student athletes welcome Wednesdays on Wednesday morning late start. Different groups will meet kids at the door and greet kids at the door as they come into school. We have a newly started formed DEI group that meets for homeroom. It's actually their class where they meet once a week. They are in the process of kind of creating goals and seeing how they want to make sure their voice is represented in the school. You saw PC Prince Charles up here this evening. He and some other students just started a student of color group. Those kids have joined with our DEI group. I'm actually going to meet with them for the first time tomorrow morning just to hear from them through their lens. I think we're working really hard. I think there's a lot of things going well at our schools, but when I hear some of our parents, it's clear we have work to do. You know, we have work to do, and we're not hearing all of it. And so I'm looking forward to talking to these kids to really hear about their experiences and see how they can partner with our leadership kids in creating the culture that we want, and not just creating it, but maintaining it. I kind of think of it as like a garden where you got this beautiful garden in like March when you plant it, and it's all clean and nice. But if you don't weed it, if you don't tend to it, the weeds grow back. So we're never there. We're just working on it, and we have to continue to work on it. Mr. Wickens.
Thank you, Mr. Benoit. Brian Wickens, Harbor Ridge principal, and excuse me, I'm losing my voice. I got Scott Yangling, my teammate back here, and Jamie Linker, one of our awesome counselors. I think I've sat here too long, and now I'm all choked up.
You want me to open it?
I'm good. I'm good. You can just listen to my gravelly voice. So we got together and we talked about some of the commonalities that we had at the middle school level, and then we also talked with the high school folks. But just to go through some things that we also do, we do grade level assemblies like Mike had talked about, and we're talking about just kind of giving a definition of what it is to students. Our students are able to handle that, and we let them know that it's intentional, unwanted behavior, and that's conduct that's meant to be harmful. So we just put it right out there. This is what it looks like. We go on to talk about the fact that it's a imbalance of power, and that can look, is it numbers, is it size, however that is, and then also that it's a repeated thing. We then talk about the difference between bullying and conflict, and is it truly bullying, or is it something that is just that's a conflict between two people, and we go about setting the difference between that. And then we go on and we talk to kids about the best thing that you can do yourself is to advocate for yourself and to put somebody on notice by simply telling them that you're not comfortable with what they're saying. And by telling somebody that you're not comfortable, you're telling them to stop. And if they don't stop, then that starts this cycle and this pattern that we're talking about it being a repeated thing. And so our counselors do a great job of coaching kids up, because not everybody, like we've talked about, has that confidence to say that. But that diffuses the problem of when you bring in an aggressor and they said, well, I didn't know because nothing was ever said, and they were laughing or whatever, so I didn't know it was bothering them. So we teach the kids, make sure you say no, let them know it's not all right. And then we talk a lot about working with a trusted adult, and like everybody around us said, it has to do with being relational and being out and visible. Excuse me. Whenever we get in front of parents or when we talk to kids, we let them know how important it is to communicate early. If it's bothering you now, let us know. And it doesn't have to be a big, huge thing. And secondary level, and I don't know if the difference between middle and high school so much, but kids are afraid to say things. They're afraid that it's going to just make it worse. And so we let them know that it's a big deal, but it doesn't have to be a big deal. If we know about it soon, we can stop it with a quick conversation. We can bring somebody in and, hey, so-and-so's not feeling comfortable, or so-and-so said that they witnessed something that wasn't nice, and we just need to let you know that you're on notice that this is stopping, or we're going to start investigating this as an HIB incident. And a lot of times that takes care of it right there if you're just proactive. We tell parents the same exact thing. A lot of times we'll take phone calls and parents say, hey, not a big deal, but just wanted you to know that my kid came home and said that this is happening, and I don't want you to do anything, but can you just watch? And we'll set it up with the parent and say, hey, tell your child, all we're going to do is we're going to post up in the commons if it's happening in the commons or wherever it's happening. We're going to post up, we're going to watch, and we're going to just do little check-ins with your child. And when they come down the hall, when we see them during passing time, we're just going to say, give them a thumbs up. And if they give us a thumbs up, we'll know everything's okay. And if they're like, then we know we need to have a conversation. And it can be that simple, and we can take care of it. But we want parents to know, and every time we talk to them, we're telling them, hey, reach out, let us know. Even if it seems like the tiniest of details, we want to know, because we want to be proactive and we want to get it taken care of. And the other thing we like to tell the kids is that, as important as it is to report, that our goal is to change the behavior. Our goal is not to hammer on the aggressor. It's to change the behavior. And so we let kids know sometimes we're just able to take care of it with a conversation, and that's the end of the story. And then kids are more apt to come and say, let us know what's going on, because they don't have to worry about this person being kicked out of school right away or whatever. So that's another thing that we talk about. We also talked about progressive discipline, and always follow through with parents. And we try, even if something comes through and and we don't have the time to address an email at the time, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, we received your email. This is very important to us. We're going to get with you tomorrow, or is there a good time that we can call you tomorrow? Just to let them know that it's been received, so it's not just sitting on our computer or something, sitting on in an unanswered voicemail. Talk about stand up, don't stand by. We also review expectations after long breaks. So after winter break, we bring kids back in, and we go over, in assemblies again, and go over in primetime, PAC, Cougar, Academy, whatever, Flex. It's all there. And then we teach specific lessons about non-inclusive language and behaviors, also lessons on kindness, empathy, social awareness, social engagement. Mike talked about the MTSS charts. We've got them. They're in classrooms, and teachers are intentional about teaching those things and what the expectations are. We've got anti-bullying campaigns that go on, bring in guest presenters. There's information in student planners, and also work with PBI expectations. And a number of our schools are doing, and I don't know if Luke started this or what, but with student roundtables, Mike was talking about getting student voice, but just bringing in kids and kind of getting the feel from them as to what how comfortable they are and what are the issues that are on their minds, and trying to get that kind of voice involved. So.
We have our own. Thank you very much. Is this on? It is. Yeah. My name is Mary Kate Grant. I'm an assistant principal at Gig Harbor High School. I'm here on behalf of Principal Suter, Assistant Principal Stolhand, the entire BLT team, all of our counselors, and all of our students and our parents and community, because this is so important to all of us. I want to take just one moment, maybe two, just to say how proud I am of the community at Gig Harbor High School and the work that we've done around our MTS development that started years ago, prior to COVID, with invitation to student voice and presentations. And we are so proud of the development of the Tideway, which is live with integrity, to be kind, be engaged, and be responsible. And through that platform has single-handedly provided opportunity for growth and learning for all of us. One example will be, if I have a student that comes to my office, the very first thing I do is say, take a peek, look at the Tideway, take a moment. I can simply ask, are you being a tide? Were you a tide when this incident took place? And it really just sets the stage for good conversation, for restorative practices. And there's so much I can share. All of our colleagues here have outlined so many preventative, proactive ways, but it's challenging work, and it's really great to be here in one room to talk about it. I'm gonna just say that what's most important is the communication that's sent out weekly by Suter. It's the communication that teachers send out to parents and counselors and all of us. It takes a collective effort, and we revisit every day what we have to do. There's just no question about it. That's simply about MTSS and the proactive measures, and then we'll talk a little bit more about HIB, et cetera. Brian?
Well, I won't add too much because a lot has been said. I think we all try to get student voice at Henderson Bay. One thing we did at the start was just have in all of our advisories come up with how do we want to interact with each other, and each advisory created sort of their norms. We brought it back to the full school. We have an all-school meeting every week where we sort of revisit things, and we took all 8 of those advisories, sent them to our leadership class, and they came together with a school-wide commitments that was student created. So trying to involve the students in that. The students are the ones who have the most power over it. We are guides. We have to be a strong voice, and but when the students step up, that's, I think, the most important part of that work of how we interact with each other, setting those really clear expectations, because that's what students want. They want to be treated with respect, kindness, love, belonging.
Oh, do I have to use the cough one? Okay, all right. Thank you. We were worried about that because, that's yours. You get to keep it. It's a gift. I'm Ty Roebuck. I'm the principal over at Goodman, and Don Musgrove is behind me. This is the principal. And so we just get the opportunity to talk a little bit about what happens when a student or a parent wants to reach out to us. Thank you. Sorry. I think it's been said the biggest part of this is relationships. It's building relationships with our students, and it's building relationships with our community so that people feel safe and comfortable to come talk to us. And oftentimes it's not just us. It's with our staff. It's with our lunch ladies, it's with our custodians, it's with our bus drivers. It's in those moments when a student says something, even if they don't think there could be anything, that information gets to us so that we can start to figure out what next steps we need to take. It was brought up that we're all a little unique, but here's an overview of some things that we all try to do. So at the secondary level, we do have Vector Alert, and so that is a form for students, and we just added a scan QR code that students can go ahead and click on and go from there. And parents can report. Thank you too. And that we've put those in our buildings. They're in the hallways. They're in the classrooms. They're available. We do have posters for students just to remind them like where they can go. A lot of students just walk in. I think at the secondary level they just kind of come in. Can I talk to you? Can I talk to you? Do you have a moment? So yes, we find ways of doing that. Unless we're supervising lunch of 250 people and we're the only person out there, in which case we're like, can we talk in like 5 minutes? So that does happen. We get emails from students. In fact, during the break, I was just getting a message and telling Don we're going to be working on something. So oftentimes students will email us just, hey, this is what's going on. This is what happened. Can we talk about this tomorrow? Parents also do that. They also make phone calls. A lot of it really is how do we find ways to help kids get through that process of figuring out, like we've said, what is this? Is it a backpack problem? Is it a suitcase problem? I love that. But like, where are we at? Like, what is this? Is it a conflict? Is it with a best friend? Is it an issue? We're trying to help the vocabulary, help them understand where they're going. The other part that's a little tricky too is sometimes students want to remain anonymous. They want us to know what's going on, or a parent will call us and say, hey, I was having this conversation, but will you not tell my kid that I'm calling you and talking to you about this? Or they don't want to be seen. And so it's, again, taking that time then to come up with a game plan to then navigate that, to work with students and to help them feel safe, because we don't want to, put them on Front Street or put them on the bus. We really want to support them, and it's coming up with a safety plan. Sometimes it is talking with them. Sometimes it's posting up, in a spot where you can kind of see. Sometimes we just say, hey, we overheard things, what's going on. Sometimes it's on the bus and there's bus video, so that makes it a little easier too. So yeah. And then again, being just available, parents coming in, sitting down, sometimes it's just over a cup of coffee, just talking through things, what's going on. Sometimes they don't have the knowledge or the skills. They're not really quite sure what to do. How does this work? What do I do? And so we kind of walk through it together. So that's you. Moving on to Mr. Greenberg.
I'm going to take it away.
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm going to spend just a few moments through the process of receiving a complaint, and this is where the real hard work starts. And you just have to pause, and you have to get ready, because you never know at any level what you're going to hear. And what's most important is just to encourage all students, all community members, parents, everybody to understand the systems that are in place. At the high school level, we've mentioned here a few things. We have Vector, which can be submitted anonymous or full detail, identify students, etc. It's very challenging when it's anonymous. We're at a loss. Our heart is heavy and we don't know how to support students and families because they're afraid, unclear what the process, whatever it is. We have to start there and internally send back a message. Thank you so much. We're here to help. We identify who we are, who would be the best person in the building. It does not have to be the person. Who is the person that you're most comfortable with in the building that can meet with you privately, and we can go from there. You can receive reports from students at the high school level, my side of the story. They simply get a piece of paper, they write down their story, they submit it, we receive it. We start to triage all of this. You can have securely reports that come in. You can have counselor reports, parent phone calls, teacher reports. You can have community members come. All of this is happening in the small city we run with 1,250 students a day. Then you have their parents and everybody else that's around that. So you can imagine how challenging this work is. But what we do first and foremost is we identify, access the severity of the complaint. And from there, we decide how do we disseminate and who do we disseminate it to. At the high school level, we have 2 administrators that primarily are responsible for this. My colleague Ashley Stolhand is 9th and 10th, and I'm 11th and 12th, and we go there. But who supports us are all of our counselors, communities and schools, our Success Coach, Jenny Bies. We have everybody there. So we start with triaging, hear the complaint, and then who's going to be part of this team, bring those support staff on to us, assess the severity of it. We then call the families to identify and share and what's going on before we even start the investigation. So this is the report, this is what we know. We want to reassure you, and we take our time. You've heard the specifics about the vector report and how many days and all of that, but we try to take care of everything immediately. Imagine those of you that are parents and educators and aunts and uncles, it's our child. We act immediately. And then from there comes the hard part. It's the investigation, and that is a tremendous amount of time, work, and effort. And I believe my colleague here, Luke, or Brian, one of you.
One of us. I got the next round.
You
One
have
of
the
us.
next round.
See, I had it set up so I go right down the line. So. The investigation process can be, and Abby did a great job explaining it too, it can be a lot. And I don't know if it's more or less at the high school level, but it involves typically an administrator. Sometimes it could be all the administrators in the building, depending on the situation. Deans, security personnel, your counselors, your communities and schools people to gather information. You get statements from students. It's important to have their words, not our interpretation of their words. Give us specifics, who, what, when, where, and why, if you know. We do in-person interviews, and that can be deep, when you start going down the line, all of a sudden that, conflict between 2 people becomes pretty big. The pebble in the water has many rings. So, one interview leads to another. So the process can go and go and go. So you have to, and then you might have to go back to the first person and interview again based on new information. Let's see. You're also talking with, where did I go? So the victim, the perpetrator, you're talking with teachers and other staff as needed. You're talking to witnesses who saw, heard, or has evidence of or information pertaining to the incident. Probably more at the secondary level, you're reviewing things like social media. You have video, lots of video. Kids don't pass notes anymore, but sometimes you might have notes. The other thing that we do is we might have to look at previous schools. Maybe you are seeing a pattern with a certain student. Maybe the previous school has information that they can share. So we communicate quite a bit with each other on, hey, what can you tell me about this? We're seeing this information. The other thing that happens at the secondary level as well is incidents between students at different schools. Right, it's not just confined to our building. It can involve 2 or more schools at times. So trying to coordinate with each other, gather the right information, and then have the right communication. I don't know students at other schools, so it's hard for me to track that information down. So we have great teamwork in that regard. And then communicating. I can't scroll here. Communicating. With the students and with families along the way within the timeline.
Thanks, Brian. I'm Luke Grunberg, principal at KPMS. Want to thank Kim Kinney, my assistant principal, for being here. Mandy Swainston, our success coach, and Paul Sarsfield, our counselor. I'm going to walk through just kind of what happens with the findings, but I do want to just add on one thing when we talk about those proactive measures. Our success coach, our counselors, they're part of this process, even when we talk about investigation. there are many ears in different spaces, our teachers included. So as we go through the investigation, we're trying to gather as many facts as possible. We want to get the findings right. When we talk about trust comes from us being transparent, communicative with our families, and making sure that when we investigate that we're uncovering every stone and making sure that we're not missing anything, even though that is possible. So when it comes to the findings, what we're really trying to determine is might this be HIB, or might this be another form of unacceptable behavior? We also, in some cases, are unable to corroborate, potential account of what happened. So we're always wanting to make sure that we share with parents, here's what our findings say. We went through this investigative process. We communicate that with a formal letter to families, both on the side of the aggressor and the victim, and communicate again, here's what we've found. We can't go into all the details of the investigation, but here's what we found. Even if it's a situation where we don't identify it as harassment, intimidation, and bullying, we do let them know there still are corrective measures or support plans that we put in place to make sure that the victim feels supported, and we develop those safety plans with the student and the families. So it's not something like, hey, we're going to tell you how we're going to make you safe. It's a collaborative process. That's where sometimes our success coach, counselors, and our team of administrators are part of that. But we, again, communicate with the family what our findings are. We share with them too. Not everyone is going to agree, so there's an appeal process, and Abby did a great job of sharing. They can contact Dan Gregory and go through the appeal process to give their perspective on, well, I think you guys got it wrong, and again, there's another layer of, well, let's look back into this, and even before that, I would just add too, myself or Kim, we don't make these decisions in isolation. So, when we look at an investigation, if I've been running point on it, I'm working with Kim. We're sitting down and looking at all of our notes, all of the witness statements, and then really trying to determine, hey, what do you think? What do I think? And really come to an agreed upon decision as to, what we found, so that when we communicate to the families, we're on the same page. Even though, like I said, if there is disagreement, there's an appeal process that they're aware of and can go to the next level. Yeah. And corrective measures.
No, thank you. Thank you, Luke. I'm Kelsey Park. I'm the principal at Kopachuk Middle School. I also am here to represent Nate Hudak, my assistant principal. Andrea Graf Miller is here tonight. Thank you so much for being here. She is one of our counselors, along with Mark Hildebrand. And I also want to shout out our school psychologist, Katie Pansky, who has also been a part of the team. So when we talk about responding and really wanting to change behavior, again, that's the primary goal with corrective measures when we put them in place. It's important that we're really utilizing all of our tools. So when we're addressing whether it is or isn't HIB, thank you, elementary team, for also giving some of those examples of what that looks like. We really are trying to be preventative of something happening again, right? But also knowing that we may have to utilize progressive discipline. Abby, I know you said that, to reinforce or to add another layer of support for the aggressor to change their behaviors. I think it's important to note that in 2018, House Bill 1541 changed our discipline laws. And so that looks different for us now. That means that we really do have to not only take each of our schools as individual schools, but each of our students and their cases as individual cases. We can no longer paintbrush that if you say this or you do this, these are the outcomes. And so it's really important that we are utilizing progressive discipline, that we as a team are consistent, and I'm going to kind of talk about what those consistent measures are. We, as corrective measures, we can use exclusionary discipline, right? So we can do a classroom exclusion, we can do short-term suspensions, long-term suspensions, emergency removals, emergency expulsions. But corrective discipline also looks like the restorative work that we've heard referenced. As a former restorative justice trainer from Federal Way, I've seen this utilized in a lot of different ways, and those opportunities for students to have restorative conversations one-on-one are super important. And as it was shared, when we get into the secondary levels, it's really important that the victim is in the place where they feel that they are ready to have those conversations, and that the aggressor is in the place to be able to take ownership. So that can take a long time of coaching. One of the corrective measures that we frequently put in place that Dustin talked about is that regular check-in with a counselor, not only for the victim but for the aggressor, so that we can kind of process through what does that conflict management look like. We also put in a lot of education. So not only proactive, but there's education responses that we take reactively to situations. Did you want to talk about one of our situations where we've done some small group, or do you want me to share? Okay, yeah, if you don't mind.
Hi, I'm Andrea Grafmiller, school counselor at Kopachuk Middle School. So we had about 14 girls engaging in some cyberbullying. It was one of those instances that Brian was talking about where one person comes and reports it, and then as you dig in, you realize it's a snowball. And so there were 14 girls involved in a cyberbullying incident, and they were girls who we noticed it had become kind of an ongoing issue with them and their peers. And so we decided to have those girls do a small group with me every Wednesday at lunch for 8 weeks. We're currently in week 5 this week. And we're using the Character Strong Tier 2 curriculum that we purchased. And the category we're focusing on is the relationships. And it talks all about resolving conflicts with other people, how to establish and maintain and then restore and repair if there's been an issue. And I have all the girls we have worksheets that we do together. They do exit tickets that show me that they learned what the main kind of concept of the day was. And then we it opens up really great conversation. And it's been really cool to see these girls who all, 6 weeks ago had issues with each other are all now engaging in these conversations with each other. And you can see the repairing happening now. They're hanging out at lunch now. You'll see some of them walking in the halls, girls who couldn't stand each other before. So that's one of the measures we put in place.
So as part of that, we are also have established at Kopachuk a diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging after-school education program, where we have students who have shown that they may have been found to have violating our HIB policies. We have education with a certificated staff member and some curriculum provided by Becky Maffei. So it's district-supported curriculum to help educate and kind of fill some of those gaps for continuous learning. We also utilize safe schools for some of our students. So we've had students go through the Safe Schools modules that are built for 6th through 8th graders. There's also 9th through 12th grade education modules in there. And that has become some of that ongoing work, not only for the student, but then for the families. So the corrective measures can be a whole broad range of things. It's really important that we not hear it as just punitive, that it's really a response to changing the behavior. We are always partnering with the families in any of these cases, and frequently we also use the Pierce County Threat Assessment to make sure that its safety is at the priority here. So if there is a safety concern from the student that's involved in there, we will do a quick monitor of the checklist to make sure we are truly evaluating what's the level of safety concern. And that's something that also Becky Maffei and our counseling program have made sure are readily available on our staff intranet. It's really important for us also to be prioritizing the victim and the view of the victim. That plays a large part in HIB, and we don't want to minimize the experience that those students have had. Luke talked about whether we can corroborate or not. That's also a part of the really hard work that we administrators do. And we want to say as certain as we can where it is at the end, and then be able to provide that corrective measures, not just for support plans partnered with the families, but also for the aggressors and the bystanders that are frequently involved, as Andrea shared in that group. We also always go back to tier 1. So in our BLTs, part of our process is that we have to review data. We look at discipline data regularly. In response to the cyberbullying, for example, it was also Andrea who brought forward to our BLT the opportunity to show like as a whole school, so that we were tying it to that and responding not only at the tier 2 responsive level, but as the proactive, making sure that all of the students are in there. Same thing happened with our DEIB group that we've developed. As a BLT, the team also decided to come back and develop some lessons about inclusive language, and they are currently working through that, and we've communicated it out, previewed lesson plans with families so that everybody has access to being able to know what those ongoing conversations are. Thank you. I don't know who I'm handing it to next. Thank you. Yep, so I think I covered support plans in there as well.
If you covered
Thank you.
support plans, thank you, secondary folks, so much. John and I were going to speak to appeals real quickly, but I think our administrators already addressed the appeal process. The only thing I would add to the appeal process is there are some timelines that were addressed. When an appeal occurs, it's a review of the investigation, the investigative report, and then issuing a written decision. And again, they mentioned that can either be through Mr. Helwick or myself. Sarah Hoover is our HIB compliance officer. It's actually best to start with her, and then we can figure out where that gets routed within the district. But again, I just want to emphasize that's a review of the investigation report. It's not to reinvestigate. And then when it goes onto the board, it's the same thing. The board reviews the investigative report, and then both of the previous findings as well, and they issue a written decision. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Dan DeZone, who is with our Employee Support Services. Dan is very knowledgeable of and has led some of the work in terms of staff training of administrators, all staff, and others. So I will hand it off to Dan.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to say, being the last presenter, I don't want to be too long. I know we want people to get out of here. I'm going to start off with a question, and that is, how many of you actually know what Safe Schools is? Raise your hand. All right. So thank you. I won't ask you if you completed it in a timely manner. But, as I was listening to the feedback tonight, first year was listening and learning. This is the second year that I've been here, and I will tell you there are about 15 to 16 principals here, and I was counting of the 15, 16 principals in this room. Just in a week, I've spoken to 10. So I want to thank them for the listening and learning that we constantly do together. We represent the district, and what I will tell you is when the parents spoke tonight about clicking and doing Safe Schools, the reflection that I heard from them last year, first year, was we need to do something different. And what we did was we created a turnkey PowerPoint to present to staff. And the reason why I mention that is we talk a lot about equity, and we want an equitable system. And one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure every principal had the same tool to present to the staff. And what was really cool about it is in August, we presented that, and I will tell you, we have a strong leadership group, and some of them already had done it before I actually presented it, and I actually stole from them, which we all do with each other as teachers. And what I'll share is we did reminders of completing Safe Schools and the importance of it. All staff. We talked about the civility in the workplace policy that was new, to not just to do the click and get it done, because in Safe Schools you actually can tell how long someone's been on Safe Schools. But as a school, I will tell you, in 1 year, civility was something that needed to be spoken to, not just with staff, but parents as well. And I know that staff have talked tonight about culture and workplace. We did a tight but a loose, because many of them, I didn't go see what they presented, but when they talked about civility in the workplace, I bet you they tailored it to what they experienced. And that's what we do by learning. We also did public records, the importance of making sure you knew what was on public records when you're on your system. So every staff member just being reminded about that. and that you could be on the news for whatever you write on your system. We also reminded them about FERPA and confidentiality. We heard tonight about HIB, which is really all that we're talking about, 3207. Even though I'm responsible for 5,000 series staff to staff, we also talked about identifying and reporting HIB, 3207. And tonight, it was very clear to me when I listened to the parents. I've met them with John Yellowlees. It was the first time I actually saw them physically. I've been on Zoom with them. But they talked about gender, identity, and expression, and the concerns around kids and how they feel at school. So we talked about Gender Inclusive Schools Policy 3211 with the staff in August to have that conversation with staff about what that meant and what it looked like. And what's really cool is when I listen to the students when I come here, now I don't get here every night for the board meeting, but when the students speak in the Inclusion and Belonging District team, John Yellowlees and I have been talking to our staff about making sure that we get student voice. But what's really cool is like what Mary Kate said, they've already worked on some stuff that I didn't even know prior to this, but many of them are starting to do some wonderful things and sharing. Because when you share, you find out new ideas. And I'll say at Mentor, we had one of our reps talk about what they were doing for just helping with bathroom issues and how the creative work of making sure kids were included and belonging. And so we shared that. We also talked about 3421, child abuse and neglect and prevention and reporting. That is a mandated policy. Just don't read it, but let's talk about why that's important. And then the maintaining professional staff and student boundaries, 5253. I've only been here a year and a half. I can tell you that is an important piece to remind our parents. And I will tell you, social media was brought up, Mike. We now have teachers that grew up with social media. I graduated with a fax machine and an Apple IIe. Our kids that are teachers now actually have phones, and they've had it in their hands since they were young. So we're just reminding them about boundary invasion and making sure that you don't use that tool because they've had it in their hand. And I will tell you, doing investigations, you do not want to see any staff member be complained about. And so we want to make sure we remind them of that. And then we also talked about restraint and isolation, just making sure that you're trained, because we want to just remind folks, don't get yourself in a position where you're being accused of inappropriate touching or restraining. So as I say that, what I discovered was Community in Schools is here tonight, and I want to do a shout out to Becky Maffea, our lead counselor. Her and I presented to with the partnership of Colleen Spear, the program director, and Laurel Schultz, excuse me. And we, but what was really cool is I got to meet all the CS staff, and we presented the same thing to them because I didn't realize they hadn't received this training. And we had a conversation, and Becky and I talked about home visits and what that looks like, working with your administrator. It was just good reminders and great dialogue. And we've decided that we're going to do that every year. And we're going to do it mid-year because what I found out is they also hire mid-year. So we want to just make sure we don't mess somebody. And then what I'll share with you, we do at the new teacher August orientation with Mary Casely. I join her with that. So we want to remind our new teachers because they're so excited about getting their classrooms ready, but we just want to remind them to get a good start. And then what's really cool, I want to thank Blair and Ross, the coaches, because what we found out is our coaches are with our kids. And when you think about boundary invasions, that is probably one of the highest areas of boundary invasions that we see. Just read the news. And we decided to have Blair and Ross make sure they present this PowerPoint as well as reminders, not just Safe Schools, with our coaches and volunteer coaches. And so I want to just say it's in our efforts to have an equitable system, and I just want to say we're trying to get better, and I really appreciate the voices tonight from the public, and I'm looking forward to the student voices as our EDR work with John of an inclusion and belonging. So I hope that was helpful. Just wanted to outline some of the things that we're trying to do to get better. We know we can get better as well.
Thank you, Dan. Just to wrap up and back to the HIB policy, and this will only take a moment. I just wanted to go back to the introduction, and we talked about this back in February. It's in what it says in the introduction is students will not be harassed because of their race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender expression, gender identity, mental or physical disability, or any other distinguishing characteristics. And I wanted to come back to that because as the group had presented tonight, kids grow and change. And when I think about our middle school kids, so much growth and change happens especially in middle school and high school. And really our work is to help them as they grow and change and trying to understand who they are, but also understand their fellow classmates and schoolmates through that. And that's a difficult task, but that is really our work. And the more we can do that, and know that they're imperfect, but the more we can do that, the more that they not only understand but can embrace their classmates, and at the very least make sure that they treat them with respect at all times. So thank you very much. If there's any other questions you have, we can field those.
If we can maybe bounce around.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple board meetings ago, one of the things we were really concerned about, one of my biggest concerns, and so this is my first part, no, wait, but is the HIB reporting procedures, in my opinion, was really broken. And that over the years, the reporting and the appealing process has really been broken. And a couple of months ago, I know we brought up maybe the opportunity, because I've heard the vector and I heard the QR codes, but we asked, could there be maybe a Google form that could be on the school website? I'm looking way back at Chris, but that could be, every school would have the same opportunity to go on a website, and once they started filling out that HIB from the start, there'd be like, you could see who went in it, there'll be timestamps on it. Because one of the things that we've had over the years as a board, when we get an appeal and we get it brought to us, it's not timely, it's not cohesive, it's not organized, and oftentimes it's just a big jumbled mess. And then we have to go through all this, and if I'm speaking wrong, tell me, that we have to figure out how to piece all this together. And oftentimes when it reaches the board, it's hard for us to really make a decision because we can't really follow the timeline right. So I was just wondering, is there something following up on that board meeting we had a couple months ago about having something that's on the website that every school could just go to, and that would be the starting point, and whoever needed to do that and put their piece in, it would be in chronological order, and when it came to us, someone could maybe just hit print, and then we get this really nice, cohesive, organized thing for us to follow through.
Do you mean like internal, once it's been reported through one of these other ways?
Yeah.
Then when we are working on it internally to gather all the data. So
Yeah,
like a
and I
picture
think, Dan, you remember a couple board meetings back, I referenced the Google form and that.
Yeah, we on another front we've switched from a different form to a Google Doc. Secondary folks, we had a brief discussion today about making reporting accessible. I'd love it if one or more of you could comment just about the effectiveness of, yes, it's nice to have an electronic opportunity, but the quality of the conversations you can have, I think that was part of what we discussed. Can you guys address that? Around accessibility and reporting?
So I guess I'm trying to like get this all together. So when you were looking for students to be able to access and share their concerns, is that what you're saying? Or is it once it's shared, what does it look like for us to go? What do we go through that process? What does it look like?
Shared, like once the HIB was reported, whether it was by a student or a parent or wherever, once it was in the system, that then there would be a centralized place on the school district website that y'all could go to. Like, so when you started your investigation, and then if there was someone else that needed to go in, they could go in and put their info in. Because what we'll find sometimes is there'll be this pages and pages of emails, from this person, and we're trying to figure out how to put that timeline together. And then we'll be this year, and then we're looking at it's just, sometimes it's really challenging for me, I'm not gonna speak for the whole board, for me to try and put it together and then to be able to make a fair recommendation, because sometimes it's not him, sometimes it's just meanness, but we have to make that final appeal decision. Like, do we agree with the findings, do we not? But when it's hard for us to go through the evidence, then sometimes it makes it more challenging.
So Chris may comment on, go ahead, Kristen, I'm sorry.
So, David, I think what I hear you saying is when it gets to the board, when that appeal, it seems to be random and it seems to be not organized so that you struggle to figure out. So, like, could there be a format? Could there be a template by which you would report and or that you make your decision and then the decision that would go on to the next designee and so on and so forth? That's what I think I hear you saying.
I'm just saying if the rest of the board disagrees with me in what I'm saying, then I will say
Right. No, I'm just translating what I think that you're saying, because you may give something which looks completely different than like the high school. And so for the board to have some kind of continuity. Okay, Chris.
So we're in negotiations with a company right now to purchase a threat assessment and HIB and behavior case management program. So we're not 100% sure we're buying this one, but we are looking at our options and negotiating on that right now. So there's things in the works. We're just not ready to say that that's what we're going with right now. The state is looking, or the state adopted a new alternative to Vector Alert for next school year. That same company has a whole case management platform that can take those anonymous reports or the reports from students, and then you can transfer them into a case manager where you can then track every detail through the process of the investigations. And so we're working on that right now. It's going to take a while. It's probably next school year.
Well, if you remember too, sometimes I don't remember which member said it, but there's like a 5-day window that you have to take the next step, and then another window. And if they get an alert and say, hey, this is due tomorrow, you guys are busy. Sometimes things slip through the crack, and it's nothing more frustrating when we don't hit those timelines, and then it just looks bad that we're not. It makes it look like we don't care because we're missing timelines. So that's all. So I'm done. Thanks.
Hello. I would just add, it wasn't an HIB, but there was an appeal process that I was involved in just a few weeks ago that some of you sat in on, that we have been working. We've been talking with Dan as a secondary group, at least, about how to present those and how to have a process and a step and a protocol so that when you get it, you can see the sequence, you can see the events that have happened. We're also working with some templates. I know Danielle could probably speak to this because she's had some good experience working through the HIB template that HR has provided for us too, which has given us more structure to the investigation process. And but we're also learning as we use it. There's some things we can do to improve it, and maybe that'll be addressed with some of the tools that Chris is talking about.
I think is what has really stood out to me since becoming a board member and then participating in some of these and then hearing the reports tonight is, I think of the analogy of a physician, right, who's trained in caring and healing patients, now spending over half their time charting instead of dealing with patients, right? And in my mind, it's just like, we read through all of this and it's like, wow, this is really hard to read through in 1 hour. And it's like, no, this is like weeks of relationships and conversations and things. And so is there a tool that can automate some of that and make it so that you, who are in the business of these relationships, and that's where the work happens, can focus on that and not all this charting and paper and photographing the Post-it notes that because you're in the moment and you're on the phone with the parent, at home, making, all of the things that is very clear from those notes that is happening. But then to then have to go back again and put it in, this kind of a more structured order is really onerous. I mean, you've got the investigation and then you have sort of the deliverable, right, at the end. And so I think that speaks to what you're talking about and what Chris is alluding to, is there some way to keep you guys focused on the relationships and the conversations and the actual work and not the administration and the paperwork and all this documentation, which we have to have. I'm not trying to discount the importance of that, but it's the relationships and it's those conversations that are scribbled on the back of notes and then photocopied and then put into a packet, right? And it's like, whoa, okay, with the spaghetti stain, which says to me, this was probably a conversation that someone was having during their dinner where they're with their family. So, yeah. Yeah.
This is a little change of subject, but what is more for the secondary level? What is the role, or what could be the role, if any, of the new security officers in the prevention of events as they escalate, or not even events, just relationships going south? And is there? Because I know that was a hope, but I'm wondering what that looks like.
Question. That's a really great question. I appreciate you asking it, and we're thrilled and appreciative to have the SSOs on campus, and we meet regularly. They're part of our SST team. They're out and about and in the hallways and in the parking lots. They're everywhere, and the number one expectation is to build relationships with students so that when we call on support, they're, oh, Mary Kate, I know where that student hangs out. I know who those friends are. So it's new to us. We actually have 2 people in the building, which is a gift at the high school. We could use 10 more, but we all know how that goes. But it's very exciting, and it's really fun to see them joining our community and becoming part of that. And it's been really rewarding to see what's taking place so far.
Agreed. And I would just say that this relational piece is so important that kids are seeking him out. They're stopping by, they're wanting to talk to him, and he has a pretty good pulse on who he needs to be paying attention to. And when things do escalate and go to a place where we're doing an investigation, he can often help us with that. He's got a lot of experience with investigations as well.
I'll use my own microphone. I would echo that and just say that the relationships are coming down into the middle schools too. I mean, I know that Brent is just at a moment's notice will drop everything if there's something going on, at KPMS or at Harbor Ridge. They're there, and then anytime that he's there, he's working really hard to build those relationships too. So it's not just happening in the high schools. It's really, really awesome. We appreciate it.
At Henderson Bay this year, we have a security specialist that we haven't had for a couple of years. Huge difference. And it is the relationship part, being visible in classes, around campus, everywhere. And just a shout out to Brent and Moose, who aren't on our campus all the time, but when needed are available. They collaborate, they ask questions, they answer questions, they bring stuff to us before we know we need something brought to us. Good job with that.
And I was just going to add, the relationships with students for sure. Brent's been in a lot of meetings also with our families. So when we sit down and are having difficult conversations, he's right there at the table too. So establishing that trust, and again, he's brand new, so they're getting to know him, understanding his role is dualistic, that there's a safety and security part, but that he's here proactively to build relationships with our kids that promote safety, physically and emotionally.
And I forgot earlier, but I have to introduce Robin Molich, our Communities and Schools person who's so awesome. Thank you for being here.
Well, I'm really excited to hear that. Thanks for explaining, because I totally agree with the one parent who commented that feels like there's a lot of focus on punishment and less on prevention, and certainly that is the case for the board? Because if it reaches the board of directors, it's already gone terribly wrong somehow along the way, because that's kind of the end of the line for the whole appeals process. And back to relationships, I think about this every time. We don't know any of these people usually, that, and as opposed to people who, like you all, who have the relationships, but who, especially, I love that the security officers are going out of their way to develop relationships before it becomes something that becomes a disciplinary thing. So, thanks.
Can you speak a little bit to the social media piece? Because I think that might be a little bit of the elephant in the room, in that there's so much work that's going on to build the relationships and to get to know the kids. And when they go home, they still have these devices with them that, in my opinion, or my summation, I guess, is that this is what's driving a lot of the change in these behaviors. And it's such a challenge for our kids to manage that. So I'm all, when I hear about this, the cyberbullying, my first thought, or I ask my kids or their friends, why don't you just unfriend that person? Like, why do you stay in these places? So can you speak a little bit to that and how that's, is it a challenge? Is that really playing into what we're seeing?
So I just want to start by saying thank you for passing the policy of technology use, because it has made a huge difference. Policies like that give us the ability to lean and say, like, this is the expectation, just much more clearly than it just being in the building. So thank you for that. But I'd love to give Andrea an opportunity to just kind of talk about that. Embedded with that is also some Edpuzzle work. Like, so we've done some commonsensemedia.org. Chris Hagel has done presentations to I think all of our secondary schools at least, about that prevention for parents and for families, as well as the district has provided some curriculum at all age levels for us to be embedding in our work that directly associates to this. But I'll also give Andrea some time to speak of the real life there.
Yeah, I would say 100% social media is a huge problem. And I speak to parents about it a lot, actually, and just either, especially at our level at middle school, they're just not developmentally ready to understand the consequences of their actions online, and that it's out there forever, and that it impacts like real humans behind that screen. And just really deciding, like, is this the right age to allow them to be on social media at 12 years old? And one of the reasons that we as middle school counselors really pushed the Like film was we really wanted students to think about the impacts that social media has on them, and inviting parents to see it at Galaxy too, so parents could also absorb the information and just decide, is this something that is age appropriate for middle school kids? And yeah, a lot of the issues that come to us it's all been outside of school on social media, and we have to have a lot of those conversations about hey, could you have just not responded? Or blocked them or unfriended them, but they just have this urge, they have to respond back, and just teaching them it's okay not to respond, or it's okay to block that person. So we have a lot of conversations about that.
Well, I have to jump in because we know, as parents and as educators too, that, again, you can say it, but what are you modeling? And frankly, we as adults do not do a good job at that. We could do the same thing, but we don't, and our kids, and it's all online, and our kids can see it. And our kids see what the adults are doing, and that's what they're modeling.
Right, definitely addressed in that film.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, that's what I'm.
That was when I was preaching.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this really
Yeah.
It's a whole family. I'm not reading, but it's a whole family education around it. I'm excited to see what other resources come from that company and from Becky, and she's been a resource, just a huge knowledge and asset to the district in some of that proactive preventative.
I was just going to say that, kind of speaking to that, what's happening on social media is a reflection of the greater community. It is not, these students are learning from other adults in their lives. They're learning from politics. They're learning from a TV show, whatever that may be. And so it is a learning lesson for them. When we get HIB complaints around social media, it's really important to take it slow in the sense of trying to understand the other side, because oftentimes we get half the story, half the screenshots, and you want to react because you're like, God, that's terrible. But there is more to the story. And so it's a learning moment for our kids to learn that that's not how we talk to people, that those choices after school on Snapchat or on Google Chats, if they impact the school day and kids not wanting to come to school or feel unsafe, that's when it becomes our problem. So that's the line that I think gets confusing, because you want to say, well, that's outside of school. Yes, but if a kid is impacted so much they don't want to come to school, then it's our problem. So I think that's the teaching of and learning for our kids, that this is the environment they're creating, yes, on their phones, but that's impacting the culture and the climate and how people feel at school. So we're not going to fix it all together, but I mean, we're certainly trying, and our counselors are doing an awesome job, but there's a lot of learning. And shout out to Chris for blocking Snapchat. That's huge.
Sorry, I don't mean to labor on this, but the biggest thing that we're also running into is the just use of network resources. So the most recent cyber issue that we were dealing with was actually on a Google Doc. So it's not just social media, right? Like, it's really about educating our students on how they're communicating and resolving conflict and really truly being with each other. So I'm appreciative of all the tools that the district provides our students, right? We have the Google Vaults. One of the corrective measures that I didn't mention is kind of, when you have a student that has maybe brought something that shouldn't be brought to school in their backpack, and you might do a safety check of their backpack as a preventative and proactive measure. So some of that corrective measure that we're doing is like a safety check of their online activity, not just securely, but really looking at what's in their emails and what's in their Google Docs, so that we can kind of just support that continuous monitoring as well.
Can I ask, so parent participation, we've focused a lot on parents who are reporting their child being a target. What is the general response from parents when their child is the aggressor? Are you finding a lot of support with the, oh my goodness, I can't believe my kid did that, let me help be a part of the solution? Or is it pushback?
I would say it's 50-50. Sometimes you get those parents that are like right beside you. That's not okay. We will work on it, and those are wonderful phone calls. But sometimes you get students that parents have, they love their children. They don't want to think that anything is that their child would do that, and so you really have to prepare. But I think going back to that relationship piece is huge. And if you built a relationship with the family, you really hope that they're alongside with you. And it's not going to be perfect, but yes, those are challenging conversations with parents. It's dead.
Sorry, it's slow. It's so late. But is that the same in elementary as well? I know that you are really working hard on those relationships too. Yeah, 50-50.
So this is all great conversations. The conversation we had beforehand was with the athletics, and one thing I saw there was a group of diverse kids who had a purpose, who were engaged and seemed like they had some skills to deal with what was going on. And that was because they had something else to grasp onto at school that gave them purpose. And we've been talking about the arts. So it seems to me we need to give these kids all opportunities to find something that interests them, that will help them have a sense of belonging, which will then help deal with the harassing, bullying, if they've got some focus. So I guess I'm going to kind of broadly ask, I know some of the things I want to see more in our schools, but are there some tools that you guys could use that would help you? More music, more arts, more athletics. What is it? More math? English classes? Is that a tool that would help prevention?
Absolutely. And I think, at Discovery, we've had wonderful opportunities with student nominated clubs. We have a very vibrant chess club. That because a second grader came to me and said he'll be a great project manager one day. He had everything laid out for me. And I said, great, I just need to find an adult to do it now. And I did. It was great. I could. The issue is now 4th and 5th grade also want to have a chess club, and I don't have anybody to run it. So that, it's things like that. I love this idea of our students, coming up with the idea and creating these groups that help them get that belonging, helping them find their people, their tribe, those who will stand by them and say, no, you are okay, you are great, and that is not. And it's through things like the clubs, the arts, those individual interests that we can really highlight for kids. So for me, it would be opportunities for people to help us with these clubs and special programs like that. Just off the cuff, right there.
More people that can lead.
Yeah.
Chuck, I so appreciate that. One of the notes I took down also is, and Danielle alluded to it earlier, we want our kids to feel safe and that they want to be at school, whether they're in the role of student, actor or actress, musician, athlete, whatever the case might be. Those are excellent opportunities for belonging, and we need to make sure that whether it's in the classroom or any one of those venues, that regardless of those distinguishing characteristics, they're welcomed into those as well.
I'm curious, though, what is it that you would want to see in schools? So you asked us about tools. I'm very curious when you said, I'd like to know what tools you need, I'm wondering what ideas or I'm curious, what were you referencing?
Every kid is different, every adult. We all have things that interest us. And if I go somewhere and there's nothing there that really interests me, kind of bored in the background, I'm going to be picking on somebody.
Boundary invasion.
She did.
Just saying. Just saying.
But
Yeah.
so, if we provide a whole bunch of different things, and I think we need more music. I think we need more arts in the schools. And hands-on things. I want wood shop. I want metal shop. I want, you guys have heard this stuff before. But if we can keep them busy, and they also have different ways to bond.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you're interested in that too. Okay. Wow. I didn't know that.
I think, through the system, the through line is really what we're working on as a system this year is the sense of belonging, right? So for us at elementary, it may be that you have kids playing soccer on the field, and you also have kids over playing Magic Unicorn on one end of the field, and that's fine. And you have kids swinging, and then you have kids climbing on the big toy. You have the gold medal championship basketball game happening on the blacktop, and you also have the I'm going to win and not get out of the top square, four square, so that kids have a sense of belonging in their play, and that's okay, and that's normalized.
Right.
And then you find passions that your staff have, and you elevate them to become advisors in clubs. So we have what I'm going to say is a rockin' Enviro club at Harbor Heights. She has a chess club at Discovery, because you've taken the passion that a staff member may have, matched it with student voice and what they may want to have, and you find it organically. And so I was sincerely curious about what you were thinking about. We as a school are really in our vision and mission work through our BLT, we are working on we want to be a community connected school. So we are finding ways to do that, and what that looks like and what that's going to be. It's not a recipe, but it's a plan, it's an action, it's intention. So we're working on ways that our little school, right there by the Tacoma Narrows Bridge can be a community school? How do we network into the airport? How do we find resources down in the marina? How do we talk about, the amazing industry that happens in Gig Harbor and bring that through line to sense of belonging? Because someone's going to be the pilot someday. Someone may be the boat operator or working on the boats. Someone else may be the business owner, and it's all good, whether you're playing soccer, Magic Unicorn, or swinging, right? And so that's what we're trying to build and that Magic Unicorn is a game, by the way. If you want to come see it, come see it. But I thank you for answering that question, because I was curious what you were referencing. So thank you.
I think, can I add into this? Because I think what I 100% agree, Delana, like that is one of our barriers, is having the capacity and the staff after school to be able to do that. But I also want us to be aware that the after school is a barrier. So giving access to students to something they're interested in after school creates a barrier regardless of time commitments to something else, transportation. So what I would ask for, that I think that our middle school team at least, like, prioritizing that time during the day in our WinPAC Cougar time allows us that chance to teach conflict management skills, because I know when kids are interested in something, they're more engaged, but they also need that ability to be continuing the learning from elementary up through to high school to have the skills to be proactive, right? And we are fortunate enough to have a BLT with the help of Andrea and Mark to propose purchasing the Tier 2 Character Strong curriculum and the Tier 1 curriculum for our building, so that we have a strong curriculum with resources and guides to help us proactively plan using not only the SRS-SIE data, but a youth needs screener that actually has the internalizing and externalizing points for students to identify. So we're getting more student voice, and then we're able to, and I'm pointing to Dustin because we just talked about this at the diversity and equity training, was this lack of equitable resources across the board for these tools that really are showing research-based best practices and effectiveness in our schools. We are able to pull small groups for coping strategies and really identify based on the student and the teacher, and we offered for parent input this time, who needs to be in this intervention group, so that we can actually provide those skills to help them cope with the internalizing that's happening that might result in what I think, again, was talked about, David, earlier, an increase in reporting, right? We are seeing an increase because I believe that in our building, we're seeing them being aware, like Abby said, we're seeing the safety, we're seeing them being able to come out. So I think those resources, making sure that they're equitably provided across all levels and really evaluating, right? Like second step is amazing for elementary. It's not as effective for middle school. And I also just want to make sure we're all clear that Character Strong is not just a sit online and do lesson, that it's a teacher, certified teacher up there teaching, engaging, using UDL engagement strategies. So that is something that is definitely needed.
I know we're getting really late right now, but you mentioned the student voice, and I want to make sure that we get that tonight because that's why we're all here. So before Logan falls asleep, and I know Sarah has something to say, really, I would love to hear if you have something to say, whether it's a comment or questions or any, please give us any kind of student perspective to this work.
Well, I just wanted to say that student voice kind of has like a really big play in belonging, because if you don't have that voice, or if you're not being allowed to have that voice, you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I just don't belong in this spot because I can't say anything and no one wants to hear my ideas. But when you get to hear, when people allow your ideas or want to hear your voice, it helps you to have that sense of belonging, but also student voice is also is great for that also, because then there's new ideas being created, and then and often those ideas get implemented and are actually in action, like the garden project, for example. But yeah.
So I have been listening the whole time, mostly.
We thought you were watching a movie.
No. Yeah, I'd say specifically on the stuff we're talking about with like the inclusion areas, whether it be like clubs or stuff, I'd say that's like really important because I know someone said that it's really helpful for like, I guess, reinforcing your like confidence in yourself, because it's like, it's one thing if you're going through like a HIB situation alone, but it's another thing if you have like a group of friends or like a teacher or some like area that you can go to outside of like the direct like conflict area, or like, I don't know, maybe another unsupportive area. Overall, looking at the issue of HIB, I'd say it's really important to consider, I guess, because, you know, obviously, you know, everything here sounds good, you know, it's like we're getting a lot done, but you always have to consider kind of the dissonance between like the students and the administration, and like whether that be like irrational or like reasonable in some areas. Like, I guess with stuff such as like Tide's Time, you know, it's always tough whether people aren't there in the first place or they're just kind of there to be there in the first place and not really there to listen, I guess, or take that into heart. So I guess the best way would probably just be supporting teachers and educators to like build those direct relationships, because that's where the learning, or at least the change, is most effective. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
I just want to say I have one more thing to ask, but first I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I know it's a really sensitive subject, and I know y'all put a lot of work into this. I do know that there's people in the room that may not, or that have come before the board over the past couple of months, that may not think this board is serious about this, but I know from talking to the board that we're extremely serious about this. Otherwise, I don't think we'd be here with all of you tonight until almost 10 o'clock at night. But there's one thing that's really been troubling me for a year or two, that, and I don't want to oversimplify this, but maybe it's a better way for me to do it, is that I know that oftentimes kids and grown-ups, we see all kinds of things on TV, in the movies, music, racial slurs or homophobic slurs or whatever it may be, that they see it on TV and they think it's okay. They see it in the movies and they think it's okay. You hear songs and all this kind of stuff, and athletes and all these people that you might idolize or look up to saying this. And I say that, like I said, I don't mean to take the severity away from it, but if the students in the hallways are walking through school, in the games or wherever they may be, the fields, and they think that using these slurs, or using all these derogatory terms, do they realize, honestly, this is serious, do they really understand how bad it is that they're using it? And I would answer, and I've had conversations with Natalie about this, that I don't think they do. And I think that they think it's okay. They do it in the movies, they do it in TV, they do it in song. And I just, you see it in award shows on TV where they're using these words and making fun of each other. And I think someone was talking about role modeling, things like that. And I think, do we need to do more to, and this could be student voice for our student reps that are here, to maybe have more opportunities to student assemblies or whatever, where they talk about how negative it is and how demeaning or damaging it can be to someone to use those terms, and they may not even really internally know that what they're saying is really, really harmful. And I just wonder, is there an education piece? And that's why I said, I don't want to oversimplify this. Is there an education more that can be done to just let the kids know that it's not okay to say this, because that's all I'm saying is. Well, it starts at home. Good. Right? I mean, if it's up to us, we can't do it all. Yep. I'd say that we do that in our school.
Brian, can you use your mic? Your mic.
Well, I just said it starts at home. If that's acceptable behavior at home, and we can't do it all. I guess I would just say we do teach those things in our schools. when we hear them, we respond to them. It sickens me that that's out there, but like you said, it's everywhere, right? The highest levels of our country, so that's what we battle every day, is trying to fight that. And if there's a magic thing, I'd love it. But it is education, it's being vigilant, it's being present, it's modeling, it's all those things.
Brian, could I ask, so the counselors are sitting right behind you, and their heads are nodding up and down, and I'm like, we need to give them the mic. Is that okay, David? Okay.
I asked a question. I just like the answer. Yeah.
And we're back. Paul Sarsold, KPMS counselor, and I can definitely say it does start at home. Luke and I came from another school that mirrors KPMS, Hawkins Middle School, and we dealt with the same thing. We would spend hours with kids. You can't do this. They'd go home, parents reset them, they would come back the next day, same attitude. It's tough. I mean, KPMS and Hawkins, more of an ultra-conservative area, and we're seeing it. And I know the big thing with KPMS is, it's been a bullying school for decades. It's the systemic community. I'm not saying we're not to blame, but we're part of the community, but it's a bigger issue. Because the kids that are doing it now had the parents that did it 15, 20, 25 years ago. And it's just recycling and cycling over and over. We spend so much time talking about derogatory terms. There's parents that just don't care. And we can be blue in the face. Kim can be on the phone for hours talking with parents. And she does. That's her. How much of your time is on the phone, Kim, on a given day? Half the day? Talking to parents that aren't going to change. And that's one of the hardest things, because we have those parents, then we have the Facebook's parents saying it's completely our fault. And then we have the 98% awesome parents that don't say anything, that work with us, but we don't see that on the Facebook sites. We don't see that on the social media sites. We just see the bad things, and we see the bad things and we think that's everything, and it's not. It's like 3-4 people that have a loud voice, and it kills us. We have a first-year principal. We have a first-year assistant principal. Second year at KPMS for me. First-year success coach. First-year community and service person. We're resetting. We're working hard. We're working hard. The amount of hours that Luke puts in probably won't surprise you, but it would surprise the average person. The amount of crap Kim has gone through from parents and students. What did a kid call you on one of your first days? The C word. Yeah, her first day at school, and a kid called her the C word. Do you think that kid learned it from school? No.
Well, I'm going to push back. It may not always be the parent. It could be.
100%. Yes, I agree, Dan.
The other things like
David,
media,
sorry.
TikTok, movies,
yes,
TV, song. Okay, some
right.
Songs are pretty horrible.
100%.
All I was trying to get at it, was just that, we've been hearing this, that this is all going on, and I just wanted to know, is there more education that needs to be done with the student body? What happens at home it'd be nice if we could get all that be corrected. I just wanted to see what can be done to make sure that holistically within our school district we're working to make that go away. Yeah.
Dave.
It's not just the district. It's not just the area. This is a nationwide thing. Group that we talked about. worldwide. Worldwide. I mean, we're seeing this in Australia. We're seeing this in Europe. The same thing. At the middle school level. Middle school's hard. I want every one of you to think back to your junior high and middle school. For some of us, it was just a couple years ago. For some others, it might be 1970, 1980 something. How many here could say they had a positive middle or junior high experience throughout? Raise your hand.
I'm going to say I did.
Okay.
I am.
Okay.
I'm going to say I did, and I'm going to bring it back here because I think it's an excellent question.
Sorry.
And I think in the interest of time, there's so much work to do. This table cannot do it by ourselves. This board cannot do it by themselves. Our community members who have been here for hours cannot do it by themselves. What needs to take place is we need to come together as a collective group and community and address this face head on. And that's where we're headed. This is the start of something very good. And if we have to institute a new policy, an anti-slur policy, anything, we're here. This is where we are right now moving forward. But in the interest of time, I think we're all at that point. But I really appreciate the question, David. Thank you so much.
Just a quick comment. Thank you so much. I know it's really late, but I do want to say, because we had a couple of people, I mean, all the speakers tonight were compelling, the community members. We had a couple people say that they wanted the board to commit to solving this problem. And I think that I can say that there's not a person up here or in the room that wouldn't love to solve the problem, immediately. I just want to say that I have a real heart for this issue and for as I know you all do. And so my comment really is just thank you to every single one of you for all that you do. And I think that it was Allie who really hit the nail on the head. I think it was you who said this. When we talk about SEL and how it's like now it's a curriculum, but it's really been, I think, I'm not an educator, but it's been at the heart of what everybody does all of the time. And, some probably do it in a more obvious way than others. But my own experience, I was bullied. I was the smallest and youngest kid in school until the 9th grade. I was really, really tiny kid. And it was my 6th grade teacher, which was elementary school then, because I'm old. And I just think back, it was genius. I realize now, I didn't know then, but I just didn't fit in. I didn't have a voice like she talked about. And he put me in charge of the classroom pet and all these things. And I got to take this chinchilla home on the weekend and whatever, but it was little things like that. And that's always been there. If you think back now and you look at it. So, I mean, it's not like a huge unsolvable, I mean, it's a challenge, but I don't want to go any later because you guys all need to get some sleep. But point is just, I want to recognize that it's not like some new concept we're going to come up with. You all just do an amazing thing every day, and all the people that work in the buildings. And so keep doing what you do. And I think this was a huge step to just be all in the same room, because we don't ever do this, and to just see what could we do. How could we do it better?
Yeah.
So.